Okay. We should be live there as well. Welcome, YouTube friends, when you get here. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Hello, Great Sag, Small Peanut, Jenny Burns. Always a pleasure. Omnipotent Rift. Great. Right? Good to see all of you in chat. Ready to have a wonderful Sundickology session, right? Once they get here. It should be fun. It should be fun. Let me check the DMs and stuff. Hopefully, well, they all say they're going live, right? I see Kidology's live. I see Sunday's live. I wonder if they're all expecting, if we're all expecting each other to go into each other's like chats to do this. I wonder if that's it. I wonder if we're all waiting for when are we gonna go in each other's chat rooms or whatever, and start the show. Let me DM them and see if that is the case. That would be very funny to me. I have a weird sense of humor though. One moment. Oh no, I am joining a call. Ah, my Discord, no. Oh, hello, can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, let me pop you out real quick so my audience can see you.
Oh, are we already live?
Oh, you're live on my end. Are we not live on your end?
Oh no, not. I just want to see if my Discord 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 works with OBS.
Oh, well, hopefully it does.
Yes, new me.
Now,
Okay.
like we could do it either here or we could do it in my server, right? If we do it here, we have to add Sunday to the call so he can join us, right? So it's up to you.
I don't know what that means. I'm so sorry.
So if we do it in my Discord server, so you remember when you joined my streams before, we went to my Discord server, I dragged you into a room, right? You remember that? Yes.
I mean, I remember our conversation. I don't know what you did, but yes.
Oh, fair enough. But
yes.
if we do it that way,
Okay.
Sunday can join us and we won't have to add him to the group chat here. But we can also add him to the group chat here if you want and just have him call in. Either way is fine.
Whatever you'd like to do. This is your show.
Well, it's our show. It's
okay.
our show, okay? Right?
Okay.
So let's see. How about this? I'll send you a link to my server. Jump in there. It's probably easier for all involved, and we'll do it from there. Cool? You'll jump backstage, and then I'll pull you in, and we can have this conversation. Cool?
Okay, so I just disconnect here.
Yeah, I will disconnect here. I will send you a link on your Discord. Okay. Click on that link. Go backstage. It'll be at the top, and then I'll drag you in. Cool?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. It's another tech support stream, gang. I feel it coming. Hold on. Give me a second. Hello.
Hello.
Kidology just called me on another thing. We're getting her in here, though. Give me one moment.
No worries. I have to get this set up anyways.
Okay, send her the invite. Hopefully she'll jump backstage. And we can pull her in. That'll be good. How are you today?
I am remarkably tired. I got fed an edible last night to try and help me sleep, and I just feel like I haven't slept in 3 weeks. Which is probably true, actually. But just feeling it all at once right now. So great. How are you?
Oh, so far so good. You know what? Give me one moment. I put my YouTube stream as unlisted, so no one can actually see me on YouTube. And I was like, why is no one here yet?
Well, I guess we know who's getting most of the super chats tonight.
Unfortunately. Let me change this. Go to public, done, save, boom. On, good, excellent. So yeah, those of you who have been trying to find me on YouTube, okay, and you're like, why are you not on YouTube? Well, operator error, my bad. Apologies. Okay, here's Kidology. Okay, I think we've assembled the team, gang. I think this is working. All right.
Okay, think that works on my end. All right. All right, welcome everyone. This is Best of the Worst. I'm. Which one's that one? That's Mike. Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I'm
I'm
not
too asleep
sure.
for this.
Kidology, can
And
you
we
hear
are
us?
joined today. We are joined today by a
Yes,
mute
I can
picture
hear
of
you.
Kidology.
Oh no, she can hear us. I gotta turn her up though. I don't know why she's so low.
I can't see you though.
Thank you.
You can't see us?
No,
Click.
I can only see Sunday.
Well, it's good enough, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, Discord crashed. No. Okay, Discord's being weird for me. I
And now
think
I can't see either of you.
here.
Y'all are using your virtual cameras, right?
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay.
Sorry. Discord crashed on me, and that's what happened. So
Okay.
on my end. But
It's
can
been
you see
happening
me
a lot
now?
to you, Whick. At least now we know exactly which porn virus you have.
The Discord one, the one that gets into the Discords and makes it so you can't see anyone in the Discord except for President Sunday, apparently. Right?
That's by design.
State recently put a paywall on Pornhub.
Did they actually?
I don't know.
Yes, there was some state did, Arizona or something.
Oh,
Where do you live,
you're
Rick?
talking about Utah. So
Yes,
it's
there we go.
not exactly a paywall. So what happened is Utah put a law requiring some sort of verification system. I'm not sure the details on that, but in
Mhm.
response, Pornhub decided to block all of the users from Utah from being able to
Right.
access their site.
Okay.
In response to kind of get
Okay.
people to argue about that. I'm not a hundo on the details of that, but that's generally the gist of it.
Right.
Well,
Right.
what she's talking about might make sense if in retaliation, as part of their verification system, they instituted a paywall anyways, and they're both,
Oh,
agitating against
maybe
that, profiting from
it
it.
escalated
That's
and I'm not
possible.
aware of it. Right. Very possible. So hit your camera button, Kidology.
I'm
Your
gonna grab some tea while you two figure this out. I'll be right back.
okay, hold on. At the bottom of the Discord, you see the turn on camera button. It looks like a little camera.
Gotcha.
Aha!
Thank you.
Boom.
Goodness. Okay, right. Let me just make this all look pretty.
Adjust
there we
as
go.
you will. Right.
Right. Okay, so I've got that. Put that on there. That won't show. Perfect. Right. All right, now there's two of me. Okay. Let me.
We're multiplying. Spreading like a virus.
Okay, there's Whick, there's Sunday. Oh, wait, no. Show those members. I wanted to hide me. How do I make it?
What are you trying to do?
I'm so sorry about this. Okay,
No,
there
it's
we go.
fine.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
We're
That's
good.
okay. There's three of us. Okay.
There are three. Yes.
So now I just.
Can everyone hear us? Are the audio issues good?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm going to put myself over there. There we go. Okay, I just need to go live. I'll be with you.
Tech support with President Sunday and Whick. Welcome. Welcome to the stream.
Bear with me just 1 minute.
Take your time. Not like we're live anything. With the audience waiting with bated breath.
That's okay. I've got NPC Elder Scrolls music playing in the background, so it's all part of the show.
feel like we should have March of the Gladiators playing instead.
Which one's that? Hang on, let's see.
That one.
Is that called March of the Gladiators?
Or Enter the Gladiators, something. Yeah, it was a gladiator music, actually.
Really?
It was no... Yeah, it was, I believe, Roman gladiator music that they wrote to be big, strong, tough guys, right? But it got turned into circus music, and that's a funny little story, but true.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. Can I just confirm that you can hear me and that you can hear Whick and President Sunday?
I can't hear any of you.
Hello. Hello. Testing. Is porridge hot? Is porridge cold?
Charles Power, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That is so kind of you, as always. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I just say that I want to applaud the principles
Brilliant.
it takes.
Brilliant. Okay. Grand. Grand. Okay, let's do that.
I don't think
So
she
then-
can hear us.
There
No,
we go.
she's talking to her chat. Let her talk to her
Yes.
chat, buddy.
Okay. I wasn't late, you guys. I actually was on time. I was just making
But
sure
she's
that
not
everything was
reacting to
working
anything we're
prior to going live. So yes, we have no technical issues thus far. So yes, the gods are on our side. Okay, okay, let's go. Thank you very much for your patience, Sunday and Whick.
I just wanted to say very quickly, I applaud the character it takes, just on principle, to completely disavow all of the technical help Destiny gave you before the stream.
Yes, it goes in one ear and out the other. So, at this point, I've just accepted my fate. Yeah.
Look, self-awareness is important, right? We all have talents, and it's important to know what your strengths are as well as your weaknesses. I get it, though. I understand. Like, look, technical stuff takes me a moment, right? Where the young bucks like Sunday can just get it real quick right out the gate. Takes me a moment too, right? Practice makes perfect, I guess. Okay, well,
That doesn't make me feel better, but anyway.
Well, welcome, I guess, to a special episode of Sundick. I was vacillating back and forth whether to call this Sundickology, since you're joining us, or Kid Sundick. I decided to go with Sundickology. Kid Sundick
That is
didn't have a
wise.
very good ring to it,
That
right?
sounds
It
a lot
just,
better. I agree.
yeah, it just didn't hit, right? But Sundickology, I think, is the way we're gonna go. Me and Sunday do this semi-regularly now, where we get together and we just react to things. We talk about things that have happened and gone on and things like that. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for that wonderful little clip montage you did for Friday's show. I don't know if your audience saw it or anything like that, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I laughed.
I had a lot of fun with that. I couldn't sleep, and I just thought, what can I do with my time that's sort of fun, but also allows me to practice some editing skills? And I thought, there were some gobbets in there that I think the world needs to know and appreciate. So yes, I'll show my chat after we've streamed, but yes,
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed it.
It
Didn't take too much offense.
It was no offense at all. Look, anytime someone does free marketing for me, I am all good with it, right? This is like unprompted, and I got to exploit your labor. It was great. I didn't have to pay you a cent. It was awesome. I loved it.
Oh,
True
the best of
capitalism.
capitalism.
Exactly.
Okay, so Whick, before we get into this, are we doing opening statements, or are we just going straight to the...
What do you mean
blood
opening
sports?
statements? We're just watching Tim Pool, aren't we? I thought that's what the plan was.
Are we doing Tim Pool? Oh, okay, okay.
First of all,
I had this whole thing. I was about to destroy Kidology body and soul, but I guess.
Ah,
I
right.
guess
Okay.
not. Yeah.
like
You do
in a-
realize I've been simping for you for the last week or so. So
Yeah, I know. It's wonderful. Your guard is down.
Indeed.
All right, we are doing Tim Pool though.
Are we?
With
look,
we're doing Tim Pool versus George the Jungle. One sec.
Yeah, so just to kind of explain to Kidology's audience what this is. So, Tim Pool in the Surfs TV had a sit-down debate last week about the subway incident in New York. Are you familiar with it at all?
The Michael Jackson impersonator
Yes.
incident.
Yes.
Yes, I am aware of that. Just based on what I've read in
Sure.
newspapers.
Sure. They had a debate that started off on that, but it covered a wide variety of subjects. And I've only seen clips because I didn't want to watch it twice, right? But it seemed like interesting enough content to kind of go over, dig into, see what we think of the arguments, and maybe have the arguments ourselves if we substantively disagree with both of the people in there, right? And it'd just be fun to kind of go over and hang out a little bit, and maybe we can destroy you body and soul, right? With our back and forth, but we'll find out. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Once Sunday gets this up, you got the link?
I do. I'm just waffling between which one we want to use. Give me 1 sec while I move that over here so that's not constantly being darkened on my stream, which it still is. Why is that? Hang on.
I might have to give you perms. Give me a second.
No. It's not a... Oh, to stream? Yeah, you might actually.
Yeah, I just did. I'll take them away at the end. I don't trust you, but it's okay.
Coward. Okay. Valuetainment. Rational, national. Trying to find...
While he finds it,
just go to Tim
so
Pool's
what's going to
channel.
happen, he's going to click, he's going to stream. We're going to click watch stream, and that way your audience can hear what's being streamed as well.
Okay,
But once
brilliant.
it comes up, you'll see it come up in the Discord thing, and you'll just click it.
Okay, right.
Just bear with me 1 sec here. Damn, I actually can't find
thank you for the $5, 𝕵𝖎𝖙 and gang, right? We got 2 contestants we need to beat, so... Wickers in chat, we need to overcome both the squids, and I don't know what the kidologists call themselves. Kidologists? I don't know. But we need to make more money than they do. So give those super chats.
Right.
Give those...
Well, we're currently on $50 because I've got some incredibly rich
Wow,
guy.
okay.
Okay, chat. Are we really going to sit here and have it implied without any kind of pushback that Kidology's chat is more affluent than the servants of Dagon? Come on. Let's...
Oh, my chat is so rich. I've got Noah Brown. I've got Joshua Craig. I've got the Relic. Wow. The Relic is in tech. I've got Charles Power. I've got this guy called the Lord's Need who offered to give me, what was it, 2,000 Bitcoin at one point. I didn't know what that meant. But looking at
the incredibly generous 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔 just popped.
I don't do Bitcoin, so unfortunately I had to give up on that.
Yo, if he wants to give someone 2,000 Bitcoin, I will accept. I will graciously accept the 2,000 Bitcoin. That's like that's a lot of money.
Okay, right.
It's like that's like $1 million.
Oh right, really?
That's a lot of money.
Oh right. Well, I don't know if it was real.
Sure.
That's the thing.
That's fair. Right?
I'm just going to assume.
Okay, what's going on here? Why can't
I don't know. It'd be worth the risk, especially if I don't have any Bitcoin. Otherwise, what's he gonna do? Like raid my wallet? I don't have any. But
I mean, everyone in my chat knows Lord's Need, right? Did anybody else realize that? Actually, I've seen him in the Fresh and Fit podcast in their chat, and he's given them like $200. So, yes.
Unbelievable.
I don't know if either of us are gonna win this one Sunday, but okay, chat, you know what to do. Try. Okay, let's make a good showing of it. Let's at least, give it the old college try. So, and Twitch, by the way, it's my affiliate anniversary. So if you want to celebrate, give some subs and bits from there. Be great.
All right, so I've got it up. Let me know if the audio is good for both of you. And this is left protest over homeless man's death and NYC demand Marine be charged. They really need to give a raise to whoever's writing these titles.
Kidology, can you see it on your screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Fatan brother, 𝕾𝖎𝖙 for the US 99.99. The spice must flow.
What is
Indeed.
going- Okay.
All right, here we go. Timcast IRL.
And now
There we go. Okay. That's a weird opening. Come on. Any second now.
So we got some protests in New York City. After a homeless man named Jordan Neely died, he was put in a chokehold. The man, 3 people were trying to subdue him, and then in the effort to subdue him, the guy died. It was ruled a homicide, and now you have protesters calling for charges of this Marine. And things are starting to get a little hectic. Police are calling for help.
Are you able to hear stuff?
No. I can see that you've... It says watch stream.
Yeah, click on that.
Yeah. You have
Me?
to click on that.
Yes,
Yes.
you.
I
Click on that.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you
Right.
can watch it and see it. Yes.
Ah, thank you. Okay.
It's okay. Can you turn it down just a smidge as well?
Yes.
Right? Just so that. So and please, Kidology, if at any point you want to talk, just tell him to pause it. Right, bully him to pausing it, and he will, and we can have the discussion. So.
Okay.
Help as things kind of heat up, but we're going to get into the nuances of that discussion, so I'll save a little bit. We do have news out of
Could you turn it
Russia.
up a little,
They're
please?
blaming the U.S. for the assassination attempt,
Thank
so
you.
they claim. And we've got some news. Barstool Sports fired one of their
driving
hosts
with 2
for
kids in the
rapping
backseat.
lyrics that contained an offensive word. I don't necessarily think it's fair to call what he said a slur, because he wasn't calling anybody the word, but, you know, he said the word, and then Penn Entertainment was like, you're fired, and now Dave Portnoy is like, I don't know, there's nothing I can do, I sold the company. So we'll get into that, plus a whole bunch of other stories, and we'll
pause it.
We'll talk about the news. Bang.
Yeah.
Pause it. I'm curious as your both stance here.
Could you
Is
turn
it-
it up a little bit more, please? Sorry, my chat can't hear.
Oh yeah, sure.
You
Thank
can
you.
also do it on your end if you right click it, and it'll have a volume slider,
This
and
is
if
true.
it's too low, you can turn it up and down to your pleasure.
Thank
So,
you.
but
Thank you.
I'm not familiar with the incident, but I'm familiar with incidences like this, where someone references a slur,
Yeah.
and still faces repercussions. I guess I'm curious what you think, Sunday. Do you think that is that reasonable for a company, for someone who is simply talking and maybe referencing a slur, for the company to fire that individual for that? What are your thoughts here on this?
I don't know the case very particularly. I think it's generally pretty bad practice unless it's like a very, very specific setting. Like, for example, if you're using the term from which the N-word, for example, is derived in the context of reading like a piece of literature by Joseph Conrad or something, I think it's generally unwise to say it out loud because it gives the impression of casualness around it, which I think is a mistake. I think if he was indeed reading off something and the guy was like just being a little bit, dumb about it, I think firing's probably a bit beyond the pale. But I don't know. I don't know the case exactly. Like it depends. If you're reading out like some white nationalist screed or something and it says that, like, it's basic common sense. You don't read that part out.
What do you think,
Seems to me.
Kidology? You got similar stance, different? What are your thoughts here?
I think fairly similar, except I don't have a problem with reading out said slur or really any slur if you're quoting it from, say, a document or historical text. I think it's important to maintain the not necessarily integrity in a good sense, but the integrity of sort of the text as having been written in a particular time and context where people and that writer may have spoken in that way. So I think I would hope that people can discern between sort of contexts and appreciate that. I don't think somebody should be fired for referencing.
I was just curious.
What about
again-
you, Whick?
Oh, me. I think it's important actually to, if you are referencing literature or referencing a white nationalist screed, to actually use the word. In that we can't like sanitize these people, right? And that's what I feel it does. I feel like refusing to use these words sanitizes it, right? And makes it seem less, it lessens the impact of the hate that they spew. And it's very important that people get a full picture of the hate. It's the same thing with war photography, right? Like, I think showing pictures of what war is actually like is very important, right? You can't censor that stuff too much because it'll give people like this watered down version of it. And you want people to see the brutality of it, right? Obviously not children, right? But like what a grown adult, like on the news, like how they used to say, well, you know, if you have kids, tell them to go in the other room. I think that's a good practice. I think that having someone not say the word aloud at all ever under any circumstances, I don't know. That's my thoughts.
I agree to a point, not to dwell on this for too long. I agree to a point, but on the flip side, and this is where I think like the issue becomes, especially if it's like something recent, it becomes sort of casualifying it. Using it in that context seems to actually sort of normalize the nature of the claim and would actually make it sort of less shocking. And so you're not actually getting necessarily like a raw taste of the actual import of the statement. It might be sanitizing it a little bit in itself, just in the sense of treating it as something casual and not like the particular kind of speech act that it is. But again, it depends on the context here. If we're talking about like a literary quote, that's one thing. If we're talking about,
I'm not even sure they get to this in the debate. Sorry,
I don't think they do. I don't think it's even relevant to this at all. So we can just press on.
Banks collapsing. We got Paul Stanley, the lead singer. I'm sorry, the frontman for Kiss, is kind of walking back his statement on transgender kids, and a lot to talk about. Before we get started, my friends, today's episode is brought to you by Cast Brew Coffee. Take a look at this bag right here. This is Cast Brew Coffee over at Cast Brew.
No, we're not giving you ad space.
𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Lance from the Surfs.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm tripping balls being in this room right now. It feels like I took evil acid or something because I've been watching this show so much. Yeah, just like everything is here. It's wild.
It's bigger than it looks like, right?
It's bigger than it looks like, and when you're actually sitting in the room, it's actually there's a lot more props than you ever give this place credit for. I thought there was just like some samurai swords and like the occasional gun or something, but there's like
that's a real Civil War rifle.
There's a real Civil War musket in the.
That's right, rifled musket. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a like Union Civil War. It was never used.
It's like a museum here.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool stuff.
Like
so what do you do? Who are you?
I am a leftist commentator. I do politics, comedy from a dumpster fire perspective, and I have opinions, and sometimes people like to hear those opinions, and then they tune in to listen to them.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for joining us. I'm sure we have a lot of opinions to go through. Yeah. We also got the exact inversion of Lance, 𝕬𝖎𝖏 𝖚𝑔𝖚.
That's how they describe me on the streets. My name is
Anti-Lance?
Yeah, exactly. I thought, no, they call him the anti-Seamus, I thought. But my name's 𝕬𝖏𝖏 𝖚𝑔𝖚. I make cartoons. We call them
British.
Freedom Tunes. And he's British? Is that why you always got to take it to an ethnic place with me, man? Always ripping on me for being Irish. I was born here.
Either of you ever heard of this guy? Like
I make cartoons.
He looks like Lactoid if he was somehow whiter. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Let's carry on.
I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes. I'm also a podcaster. We uploaded a cartoon today, by the way. Y'all might want to check that one out. And I also have a stream on Rumble called Shamer. If y'all want to take a peek at that as well.
The Freedom Tunes person?
Apparently.
Okay.
I don't know him. I don't know Freedom Tunes.
No, we have Moon Lord himself.
I am the Moon Lord.
He knows.
No longer Weed Lord. I have evolved.
Oh,
I have
hey,
become
thank you, Raiders.
one with the
Lonerbox, welcome. Lonerbox and Co. We are with Kidology and President Sunday, and we are watching Tim Pool versus the Surfs. You're lucky we just started. The first 30 minutes was tech issues. We sorted that out, right? So you got here just in time. Thank you for the raid. Sit back and have a watch as we see what goes on here. Carry on. Sorry about that. I had to make my money.
What'd I do? Okay.
The vibration and the fabric of reality. So good to see you, Lance.
So good to be here.
And if you don't know, you don't know. But I am the Moon Lord. Let's get hot.
And I am Surge.com as always, guys. Let's
get to it.
Let's jump into this first. You
Wait,
pressing
actually,
pressing the wrong button over
this
here.
is I gotta flag this. This is the first time Ian and I have done a show together in almost a year.
speed
We
it up a
speak
little,
about,
like,
I was yelling at you about
yeah,
religion.
What's that?
Can you speed it up a little? Put it on like 1.25
you wanna
or
speed it?
something.
Okay. Okay, we
Just-
can 125.
Yeah, that just to start. I don't care about all the introductions.
This not. Do we need to jangle some keys for you there, Wick? Thank you, Sean Kroner, for the $5. Appreciate it.
You could just start watching
Religion or
the
something.
anime.
Exactly.
Oh,
And
But this is our
alcohol, I
first.
Say
Oh,
one
sorry,
more
kid. I
time.
didn't mean to.
I just said, Wick, you can just watch a little bit of anime in the meantime while we watch the
Exactly.
introduction.
Gosh. No, there are a lot of other things I would rather do with my time, but carry on.
Show. Yeah, that's our first
Welcome
show
back,
Yeah,
Seamus.
it's
Great
good
to be here, man. Yeah, I've
Wait.
evolved on my stance on
Wait,
religion.
what
We've
happened?
also talked off air. We've talked off air a good bit, but it's just funny that it's like I just realized it's our first episode we're both doing together because I've been seeing you for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. We went last time we talked. We were talking about like I brought up vice. I was talking about alcohol. So you're
I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit so we get into it. Here we go.
Yeah.
And then, but like his blood is alcoholic. Is that why it's wine?
So the properties of bread and wine remain, but what we believe as Catholics is that it's his literal flesh and blood.
Okay.
By his body, blood, soul, and divinity.
Interesting.
But he's not made of bread and wine.
No, he's not literally made of bread and
and
wine. No.
get crunk.
All right, let's read the news. Here we go.
Wait,
got
we
the
also have Serge Dupre. I
Serge,
didn't
You already did say what's up. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Man, Moonlord.
Thanks, Doc.
All right, here's the story. We got this ABC 7 New York police issue call for help. Outrage continues to grow over deadly subway chokehold encounter. They say the death of a subway rider who was put into a chokehold by a former Marine on the train has been ruled a homicide, and now activists are calling for charges to be filed. They have planned several protests and rallies on Thursday
Stop
as
in
the
a moment.
NYPD has issued.
Yes.
I want to, before they give their opinions, right, before they prime the pump a little bit, right, I want to hear your opinions on this. I'm very curious from what you know of reading or looking at the situation. What are your thoughts here? Like, I've heard people call this lynching, right? I've heard that term thrown around. I've heard on the opposite end that this guy's a hero who did nothing wrong, right? So I'm
Yeah.
just curious where both of you fall. What do you think, Sunday? What is this guy a hero or a villain? Is he a murderer or is he simply a good Samaritan that got a little carried away?
I haven't seen the footage yet, so I still need to look at that. My understanding is that the person was holding the guy in a chokehold for somewhere between 2 minutes and 15 minutes, depending on who you speak to. I'd want confirmation on that. It's kind of difficult to say. Like, on the one hand, it seems, just from what little I know about it, Jordan Neely as a person has a fairly violent history already. And the fact that he was out on the streets, untreated, unmonitored, et cetera, speaks to, like, wide systemic issues by itself. Like, that shouldn't have been the case. With respect to the person holding him to the point of his death, I would need to see how he was behaving, whether or not, like, up until that moment, he seemed to actually, like, logically pose a threat to the person. Whether or not the person's death was unjust and a result of, like, systemic neglect doesn't mean that you can tell somebody to endanger themselves for that person's sake in an encounter on the street. If he was holding him past the point of him ceasing to struggle, then I don't think I would ever characterize this as a lynching, but it's definitely in the direction of manslaughter or even murder if he went beyond the point of actually subduing him and just held on. But I'd have to see the footage.
Sure. What any thoughts on this, Kidology? I'm curious.
I think it's very difficult and I think impossible to sort of characterize something or a situation as being sort of moral or not, or the individual being a hero or not, when I think that inevitably in such a situation, everybody is just acting on instinct and impulse. So I think this idea of, somebody being a hero for just doing something in, quick thinking is, I think, not a good idea at all. I think that I don't think that he should be charged for what he did, because I do think that it was quite a harrowing situation for everybody on the subway. Yeah.
Does being scared give you the right justification, ability, whatever word you want to use? Does being in fear give you that justification to attack someone or restrain someone or use violence against someone?
That's a tricky question because the fear of violence is precisely the principal justification for any kind of violence against your fellow human beings in a liberal society generally. If the person was legitimately fearing for his life if he let go, what are you going to tell him? Like, no, you can just die. Like, at that point, what you're criticizing is whether or not, by his own lights, he was justified in what he did. What you're criticizing, if the fear was real, is whether or not the fear was rational.
I think the fear was... Sorry.
No, go on, please.
Yeah, don't
Sorry,
apologize for interrupting Sunday. Just do it, right? And then if he tries to complain, just stare at him. Just give him the eye, right?
Got it. Okay.
You know, I'm not actually autistic, right? Like, I can survive that. Okay, just continue. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think in this situation, the fear was most definitely warranted because, according to witnesses, this impersonator, Neely, I believe his name, he was saying that he didn't care if he died, that he was ready to die, that he had nothing to live for, that he was homeless, and that life wasn't worth living. And he was threatening people as well. And so I think in that situation, when somebody is behaving in that way, I can understand wanting to apprehend or to constrain the person if you can, in the interest of sort of this kind of utilitarian thinking of your actions in that sense.
So given that the man was a former Marine, right? And while not being a Marine myself, I was in the military, Air Force, right? So we a little bit different, a lot different, to be honest with you. But they do get training in how to subdue people. If you are using a chokehold for any longer than like a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, right? You're doing it wrong. It doesn't take that long to get
They're
someone
saying,
to pass out.
and people are saying like just on the short end of 15 minutes.
The time is weird because I've heard different reports, right? I've heard 15 minutes, I've heard 3 minutes, I've heard 6 minutes. I don't know.
Right.
And again, if information comes out that changes the time, right, then my opinion might change. Like,
But you're saying over 1 minute is too long, just by...
you probably shouldn't, right? Like, again, I wasn't there, so I don't know if he was struggling. Because 3 or 4 people held him down. It wasn't just this one guy who had him in the chokehold. It was multiple people holding this guy down, restraining him. So I don't know how much of a struggle there was. But I have seen parts of the video where there is a point where he is no longer struggling, where he has stopped struggling.
And he's still being held.
And he is still being held. Now, that said...
I also see very quickly, I see some people in chat telling me that eyewitnesses say that he was actually grabbed from behind and he wasn't threatening people. So,
look.
and we don't. I don't think we have footage of him prior to him being held. We have footage of him in the chokehold.
Yeah, I don't know. The mixed reports. Some people say he was being threatening. Some people say he wasn't being threatened. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was sort of like indirectly being threatening. Like he was saying things like, "I don't care if I get a life sentence. I'm ready to go to jail." And so I think in that sense, that implies something. I think maybe not directly threatening, but at least indirectly, something that could cause fear on public transport.
He did also say he was willing to hurt anyone on this train, right? Like he did say that. And again, given the context of there is violence in the subway, it's not unique, right? It's not vanishingly rare. It happens. It's not super common, but it happens. So I think initially restraining him was fine. I think I have no problem with someone initially saying, "Okay, you're threatening people. We want to keep you from doing harm." I think, however, that given if it was as reported he held him for as long as he did, I think that's negligence. I think negligent homicide is what I'd call it. Charge this guy.
I'm
with.
running this. I'm running this
Right.
through my head, and I'm seeing somebody who is giving off essentially threatening vibes by implication, and legitimately threatening vibes, but vibes, verbally. This is a guy who's standing up. He's saying some stuff that is freaking people out in the subway, and I'm playing through like what a reasonable escalation would look like in my head. And the first thing is there's some kind of verbal altercation between somebody who's telling him to cut it out or to get off the thing, and then he doesn't comply, and then physicality breaks out after that. If indeed what took place is this person was speaking in that way and somebody just grabbed him from behind the neck, then even if it's 1 minute, I don't think that's acceptable. I think that's beyond the pale. I don't think we would really accept that in virtually any other case. And I think the fact that this person is homeless as well, and the stigma around that, and once again, like in this case, this guy, like unbeknownst to the people on the train, has like an extensive criminal history. I can absolutely believe that he was being as threatening as they are saying, or at the very least presenting.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that best practice, verbal de-escalation, right? First, best practice, but you don't always have that. I guess I don't know if I'd require that, because I don't want it to be, I don't want to live in a world where if you don't act perfectly in this situation, that you face charges. I don't think that's wise. I don't think that's good for society. But I do agree with you that best practice, yes, probably try to talk him down first. If that
Well, how
doesn't
about
work,
this?
then escalate.
Let me pose this alternative scenario to you. Let's say Nick Fuentes got really sloshed one day and he's on the subway, and he's going on and on about how he wants to do violence to some member of some minority group, and he's giving off legitimately threatening vibes. A same Marine on the same subway is like, oh, that's not cool. This guy's like menacing people on the train, and he puts him in a chokehold from behind. If that's the sequence of events that took place, do you think that that's more than just like a non-ideal case, or do you think it's actually like just out of line?
Again, it would really depend on the context of what's being said, but I can imagine scenarios where it would be okay, where I'd be like, okay, that was the right call. And I can imagine scenarios it wouldn't, depending not just on the words he's using, but the actions he's doing. Like, so is he getting in people's face and literally like screaming so loud at them that he's spitting on them? Or is he throwing shit? Like, is he breaking I don't know, right? Like, I need more information.
I think the online response would also be very different if that were the case. And I think that's sort of an issue here as well. Like, these things that just happen to be sort of very horrible and harrowing everyday things that happen to people in modern societies now sort of turn into these moralistic, political, bickering arguments online. And I think the problem with sort of calling this man who put Neely in a chokehold sort of a hero is that I think it inadvertently sort of maybe not encourages, but sort of deems fit such behavior, even though I think what he did, I can understand what he did. I think it sort of induces a sort of individual warrior sort of behavior, sort of this idea of anybody can be a hero in these public situations when something not so serious is happening, if you know what I mean. I think somebody in my chat called it like this sort of vigilantism on public transport and in public places. And I think that's sort of when things get a bit out of hand.
Kind of like just like a masculine rah-rah, yeah, I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna like rough this person up because they have that like fantasy going through their head. See, I would have said Whick to that question, like even in the case of Nick Fuentes doing exactly that, I wouldn't consider that to be justified at all. In this particular case, it seems like we're literally dealing with someone who is clearly demonstrating that they are mentally unwell, and we have a guy who here's what I suggest we do, because I don't think any of us have gone in depth into the details for the last couple of days, at least. Let's just take what these two agree upon as the facts, and we can sort of challenge them as they go as relevant. But we'll argue like on the basis of what these two know, and I think that will be a lot more helpful.
We'll go with that, because again, not to do too many qualifiers here, but if the facts change, my opinion will change. Like, I'm going to base my understanding or my opinion off of the understanding I have of the situation. If that understanding changes because new information is released, I'll change my opinion, and I think that's fine. But let's hear it, right?
And very, very quickly, thank you, Not Brooks, for the $5. Need to know if anyone on stream has taken a subway in the last 6 months. I'm on Vancouver Island. I haven't taken a subway in years.
I'm in rural Pennsylvania. I haven't taken.
Whick
any
lives
public
under the
transport.
subway. He doesn't need to use it.
I live in the UK, so I take underground, and yes, I have. Yes.
You take Thestrals. Okay.
Issued a call for public help in their investigation. Jordan Neely, 30, died from a compression of the neck, the city's medical examiner determined Wednesday. Neely is recognizable to some New Yorkers as a Michael Jackson impersonator who regularly danced in the Times Square Transit Hub. On Monday afternoon, he was yelling and pacing back and forth on an F train in Manhattan. Witnesses and police said when he was restrained by at least 3 people, including a U.S. Marine veteran who pulled one arm tightly around his neck. A physical struggle ensued, leading to Neely losing consciousness. He was rushed to Lenox Hill Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. On Wednesday, a medical examiner determined Neely's his death was a homicide. However, that does not mean the case will be prosecuted as a homicide. Okay, that's the stupidest bit of writing I've ever heard. As a murder.
So immediately, just to stop here, I apologize. We see he's restrained by 3 people, at least 3 people, including a U.S. Marine. I'm a little bit perplexed because think about like how much space an individual human body takes up and what it actually means for 3 people on a subway to be restraining somebody. There's not a lot of space here. I'm perplexed as to the needfulness for an arm around his neck in the first place. That seems like an odd decision. That seems like something you would do if you were like the sole person restraining a guy, not if you had like 2 plus other people.
If
with
you got 3 people restraining a guy, you might need to use that. Like, so I guess, yeah, the implication from this information that it took multiple people to hold this guy down implies a struggle. Implies this guy was fighting, right? Which is understandable if you're being put in a chokehold. I would fight too, right?
Potentially, but it seems like what the police are reporting is that he was pacing back and forth and yelling, and then between that and him being restrained, nothing took place. They grouped up on him and restrained him because he was pacing and yelling. It doesn't say there's a fight first. In fact, it says the physical struggle ensued after the restraining, which makes sense because a guy had his arm around his neck. This guy's clearly unwell. He's going to panic. He's not going to think, okay, I'm going to calm down and maybe they'll let me go. That's not going to be his thought process. No. I expect. So this sounds like an attack. I mean, like, no way around it. Like, he's still behaving massively inappropriately, and he's behaving in an admittedly, let's accept for argument's sake, in an overtly threatening manner. He's got 3 people ganging on him, and he's got one with an arm around his neck in advance of an actual physical altercation. That, to me, sounds like the definition of an attack.
I think it's also difficult when you consider, for instance, just devil's advocate, when you constrain someone successfully, but you're on a subway, what do you then do? It's like sort of when you're in that situation, you've got somebody successfully held down. What do you do when there's nobody, like there's no authorities coming? I think maybe sort of there was an aspect of, say, social influence playing it. We've got to keep him constrained until a certain point.
I take what you're saying, and it makes sense in a context where Neely initiates a physical altercation, wherein he actually attacks other people on the subway. Then at that point, like, you know, their hands are tied, so to speak. They have to respond to an actual like physical attack themselves. At which point, okay, now we can leave it up to their judgment. Are they panicking? Like, I can understand that. But if they're initiating the physical altercation, that seems to change the nature of the encounter pretty significantly.
Let me ask you this, and I know we haven't really gotten far, and I'm sorry to get stuck on this, but do you not think that there's any, or I'll just ask you, do you think there's any situation that would justify a preemptive restraint of someone who has not yet engaged in violence, but there is a reasonable expectation that they will?
Yeah.
So it justifies restraint.
Yeah. If he says I have a weapon and I'm going to hurt you, right?
Well, he did say I'm going to hurt people on this train.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he said anything about a weapon, right? But I think that after those words leave your mouth, people can restrain you, right?
Let's get confirmation on this. Did he? Do we have confirmation?
Let me look at the exact quote. Let me find it.
Please.
Give me a second. You can keep playing it. So, but as
Murder,
for,
they
but
mean.
I don't
Homicide means
think.
death
Oh,
caused by
oh,
person.
I'm sorry. Pause it real quick. But
Okay.
like, because I'm seeing people in my chat saying, "Oh, you can't justify killing someone because he was yelling and people were scared." I agree. I don't. Does anyone here think this guy intended to kill Neely? I don't think this was an intentional thing. This doesn't feel intentional. But
Look,
I'm not
I
sure.
I gotta say, Wick, I've got no military training whatsoever. If I held someone's neck for 5 minutes, I would expect him to be dead afterwards.
Oh,
So I don't know. Like I mean, granted, there is that joke. Like, what do they call 110 IQ in the Marines? A platoon.
sure.
So I don't know.
And
It doesn't mean
again,
criminal.
but anyway, Garen.
So what they're trying to say is,
Did you find that quote?
I'm googling it right now.
All right.
though the death was ruled a homicide, it does not mean the case will be prosecuted as a murder. That is up to the Manhattan DA's office, which is investigating. But I suppose I'm probably being a little bit too harsh because you can, they're not being clear here. You can make the argument there's reckless homicide, there's negligent homicide. And so what they're saying is it's not clear that he will be criminally charged. They probably just should have said. They're going to say, as a part of our rigorous ongoing investigation, we'll review the medical examiner's report, assess all available video and photo footage, identify and interview as many witnesses as possible, and obtain additional medical records, read a statement from a spokesperson for the DA. So we've got video coming out of New York. Protesters, I believe this was yesterday, were seen in the streets, and the police made some arrests. And we'll get into it in a little bit, but one of our reporters, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, was physically assaulted by one of the protesters and had his property destroyed while he was in the process of doing journalism. But let's just get down to brass tacks here, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of arguments about this one. This is the story of a guy who was having a mental breakdown. I guess the news that recently came out was that he was a subway performer and his mental health collapsed after his, I think his mom was killed, is what they're reporting. And after that, he kind of just lost it. And then he had been arrested 40 times. He had once punched a 67-year-old woman in the face. And so as he was belligerent and on the subway, reportedly threatening people, saying that he would take it, he was ready to die and he would hurt people. This is when the three men subdued him.
So here's my. Go on, please. You found
So,
it.
according to NBC New York, police sources told NBC New York that Neely purportedly told riders on the train that he wanted food, that he wasn't taking no for an answer, and that he would hurt anyone on the train. That's what the report says, at least. So
Okay,
whether
so it
that's
was a
true or
verbal-
not,
it was
or
a-
accurate, I don't know. But that's
So
what
it
he
was a
said.
verbal. It was a verbal threat of a stick up for a free lunch, essentially.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay. Once again, like I'm in this situation where, unless he initiates an actual attack, if this person's just speaking, and frankly, like it doesn't really matter who he is if he's still just speaking, or what he's saying, unless it is something that implies he has the technological capacity to actually like for example, if somebody walks into a bank and says, "I have a firearm," at that point, people are justified in responding to that with a commensurate level of force. If people draw a weapon and they hold him at gunpoint because he claims he has a gun or a bomb, makes sense. If we're talking about a homeless guy saying, "Hey, I'm gonna get violent unless I get food," or something like that, you can get up and you can tell him to back down. You can eat hell. You know what? Even if at a certain point, if he persisted, they threw him off the subway, that'd be one thing. Putting him into like grabbing him from behind around the neck prior to any kind of physical altercation taking place, it's very difficult to justify that. And the conjecture by other passengers that he might become more violent later on if they didn't do something like that doesn't strike me as adequate in that particular case. And one of the things that's kind of bothering me about kind of front loading this person's criminal history is that would lend to my giving credence to somebody claiming that this person was acting in an unruly manner and maybe even in a threatening manner. But in this particular context, it doesn't seem to be used to sort of justify that. It seems to be used to say, well, this is the only way this person could have been dealt with.
I don't think that I don't think the passengers knew his criminal history.
Well, precisely, and that's my point. Like,
we set that aside, but given the fact that again, they don't know who this guy is, they know, right, quote unquote, that there have been attacks on the subway, that this is happening, right? That this is a dangerous place to be and it's getting more dangerous, right? In that atmosphere and in that context where there was 26 people pushed on the train tracks, right? And things in New York subway system, right? In the last year or something. I think that's the statistic. But given that sense, and you see this guy comes in and starts threatening people, I give them a little more grace. I think it's reasonable to restrain someone in that situation. Like, okay, buddy, right? We're going to restrain you. Now, whether they should have used a chokehold or not, different story. But I think restraint, I see no issue with that, the initial restraining of them. I don't think that's an issue.
Unless by restraining they initiate a physical altercation, out of which there might not have been one whatsoever. What we know for a fact is that as a result of them trying to restrain this person, and additionally in the manner they did, somebody ended up dead. It's distinctly possible, had they simply verbally or stood up to the person or maybe walled them off, everybody would have left that subway all right. We don't know. They jumped the gun, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah, I do agree with you on that. I think that there was, at least based on what we know so far, the sense that a crucial step was just completely missed, and that of sort of communicating with him and like trying to talk to him, engage with him about the things that he was saying, for instance. I think this is clearly somebody, or was somebody, who was clearly suffering great mental health crisis, long term. And I think in moments like that, you sort of need somebody to just hear you. And I think sort of that preemptive ear, and I think a lot of social paranoia now probably influence this idea of just doing the physical. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Not Brooks with the $5. Thank you. Correct take. It was murder in public over 15 minutes period.
Oh,
well,
yes. Thank you so much for the $10, MJ. MJ says, so if I come across Karen or Ken in a threatening, verbally abusive manner, am I now to use vigilantes tactics, or do we still believe in law and order?
So, look, I have some people in my chat, they haven't paid me money, unfortunately, but I have some people in my chat saying, like, well, if someone's scared, are you justified to kill them? I mean, depends, right? If someone threatens you and you try to stop them, and within that struggle, you stop them and they die, right? That's tragic. That's unfortunate. That doesn't make you a murderer. That just, unfortunately, is what happens, right? Because I don't want to live in a world where I can't defend myself. If someone is attacking me, I reserve the right to stop them using whatever force, the least amount of force I possibly can. And if things go wrong, right, it's tragic. And if I was negligent, I should be held responsible. But that's the question. Was this negligence? It sounds like probably if he held him for that long, that's negligence. But just in general, if someone threatens and says, I'm going to come to your, if they're in my face, if they're like in person with me, and they're shouting in my face how they're going to hurt me, I reserve the right to stop them from hurting me before they hurt me. I don't need to take that punch to the face, right? I can stop them before that happens, and I think that's eminently reasonable.
Oh, yeah, and if they get in your face, you can shove them away. You can even possibly punch them, and you can start to remove yourself from the situation. The issue I'm having here is we're not talking about an altercation that developed between somebody standing up to this person in the front. We're talking about an altercation that was triggered by this person being restrained from the back by somebody with his arms around his neck. Now, at that point, the ability to communicate with this person is obviously being a little bit impeded. You can't negotiate or talk down somebody that you have in a chokehold. It doesn't work that way.
Sure, and like, again, I'm not defending this guy using the chokehold. I'm defending the restraint in general, right? But again, even if it's not threatening me, like, if I was on the train and I'll be real, I'm 5'8". I'm not very tall. I'm not very strong. If I see some big dude, right, threatening someone else on the train, yelling at them, screaming in their face how they're going to hurt them, I think that's okay to use a little more force to put them down, right? To restrain them. Mm-hmm. Even if I'm not being directly threatened. If you see something, say something, right? If you see something, do something. At the same, I don't want to be the bystander who just sits on my phone, takes out and records it while someone gets hurt, right? So again, I think in this specific instance, the guy is probably negligent because, again, he should not have held the chokehold for that long at all. But I think initially it was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just comparing this to a situation that I had a few years ago. I was on the underground and there was a man he was homeless. I spoke to him afterwards after we got off the subway, and he was on the subway with all of us, well, actually on the train. And throughout the journey, for an hour-long journey, he was shouting and raving basically about how much he hated white British people and reflecting on the fact that Mussolini was crucified, interestingly, just like Jesus was, and nobody bats an eyelid and all these sorts of things. And people were clearly uncomfortable, but in that entire journey, nobody did anything. And I would say nobody did anything because he didn't threaten anybody directly. He was just angry. He was upset. He wanted people to hear him. He just felt ignored. And then when we got off the train, I spoke to him a bit and that was all fine and he was okay. And I think the important thing was that he didn't say that he didn't care if he went to jail, that he was willing to essentially give up his life. I think that's what kept people sort of fearful, but not necessarily needing to act upon that fear in order to protect the people on board.
Meatwad for $5 asks you both an interesting question. How often do the three of you encounter belligerent homeless people in your day-to-day lives? Daily, weekly, monthly? Again, I live in rural America, so not very often, but I have lived in cities, like in California. I lived in Monterey, right, for a while. I've lived in Wichita. I've lived in New Jersey before. In New Jersey, it happened all the time. Every day almost. Like, they would come up to me and yell, beg, sometimes got violent. In a couple cases, I told you guys how I lost this tooth, right? Right? Like, these two front teeth are fake. I got pistol whipped, right? I was mugged. I don't know if the guy was homeless, but it was in a city, right? And the guy approached me, started getting in my face, and then pop, took my wallet, my money. So it's not zero. But yeah, I live in very rural area.
Question for you then. A question for you then. So in advance of him pistol whipping you, suppose Big Burly Sunday in his Marine getup came up behind him and put him into a chokehold and then held him there for 5+ minutes until he died.
No, you shouldn't have killed him, right? But
should I have walked up behind him and put him into a chokehold? And he
passed out, and after 30 seconds or a minute, you stopped? Hooray, right?
Okay, but at this point in time, we're literally just dealing with mentally ill people who have been completely neglected by their society.
But that's the thing; they don't know. The people don't know it's just a mentally ill person, right?
I understand this, but they don't know it's otherwise either. And in advance of any like escalation taking place where you're actually facing down the person, you are literally just picking out someone based upon your independent judgment. This person looks spooky. And deciding to escalate it immediately to action that can only have like two outcomes: either the person is severely injured or dead.
It's not just they look spooky, right? It's not just that, and it's reductive to say it's just that they look spooky, right? That's not
I have
what's
people
happening.
I have people in my chat wanting me to bring on Brooks, but of course, like you two are both.
I don't know who Brooks is.
Brooks is a friend of the channel. It'll be interesting. I can say that it will not be TOS.
But
I leave that to your it's to your decision, both of you.
I'm okay with whatever. It's up to Kidology.
Don't mind.
All right.
With that,
I guess.
rousing.
Okay, Brooks, you got 10 minutes. Okay.
Well, are you asking the question, Sunday?
Did you want to answer, please?
No, do you want to answer?
Oh, do I want to answer?
Wasn't it for all of us to
yes.
answer?
How often do the three of you encounter belligerent homeless people in your day-to-day lives?
Probably on a weekly basis or so. Victoria has a fairly severe homelessness problem. Affordable housing is not available, almost categorically. there's almost like no mental support for a lot of these people. It's bad. And I'll encounter people fairly regularly who will like walk down the street and they'll yell at you and stuff like that. And it's these are not people who should be left to their own devices without any like normal resources on the street.
What do you mean not left to their own devices? Do you think they should be forcibly institutionalized?
In some cases, possibly. In a lot of cases, we're dealing with people who are dealing with severe addiction issues. We're dealing with people who are sleeping on like benches and things like that, and they are given no financial support, basically whatsoever. And there's no way out. It becomes, like situations like this become almost inevitable. You're putting people into a situation that is essentially unlivable, and not like people who are sort of equipped to adjust to that kind of situation. Like it's a spiral of destruction at that point. These are not people who have the wherewithal to get out by themselves. They should be given housing assistance and getting off of whatever they're addicted to and things like that. And our attempts at providing that have been incredibly lackluster. So, okay, well, I will bring in Brooks then. Give me 1 second.
Just send him a link and
Yeah,
have him jump backstage.
I'll answer the question while Brooke comes in.
Please.
Because it's interesting what you're saying. It's at least where I live, it's very different. I encounter homeless people every single day. We have a huge homeless population in Cambridge, but I know everyone. Like you sort of know everybody by face or by name, and I think it's because firstly there's well, if you squat, there's lots of empty houses around Cambridge because it's so expensive. And if you squat, you can legally squat. So it's attractive in that sense. There's also a council estate, which does a lot of drugs just up the road from me. And that attracts a lot of people. But we also don't have guns and not much sort of physical violence beyond sort of drunk squabbling. So I think that at least keeps the up the appearance that the homeless population here is not violent. And definitely I don't feel unsafe when I go walking at like 2 a.m. or anything like that. It is sort of just what it is at the moment, especially. So it's interesting. We also have initiatives where there's this newspaper called The Big Issue, which homeless individuals can sell and keep the money that they get from these papers. And you just have to basically pick them up from a homeless shelter, which we have, which distributes food and everything. You can sell them. And so a lot of people do that. And so there's a black market of bicycles,
I think
which...
Yeah, I think
really
one of the issues, right, that happens in this conversation, and not just this conversation, but in conversations about these topics, is depending on where you live, but based on both country and like region, right? You're going to have remarkably different experiences with homeless individuals, right? My experience with them in Wichita was remarkably different than my experience with them in New Jersey, which was remarkably different than my experience with them in California. In California, they weren't really a big issue, right? For me, at least for me personally, I never really, I would give them money sometimes or raincoats. Like I had these raincoat pouches, these $2, you can get them for $2. And when it was raining and stuff, I'd pass them out, right? But didn't really have an issue with them. But in Jersey, it was absolutely an issue and it was absolutely scary, right? I was afraid, right? In many cases. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think with that, I mean, there's a little bit of frustration I have definitely watching. So surprisingly, not with Kidology. The idea, the general warmth with like, hey, maybe we should take a second look. The being out in public thing, I think, comes first. We have an entire society in America, and it's very different than the UK. I was just out in London. The Tube's very different beast. I was in New York literally 3 weeks ago. Very different beast than New York. LA, in theory, has a subway. I've ridden it. I know it exists. But the reality of public transit in any of these cities, or even dealing with people by walking down a street, people in, say, Europe do that. You walk down the street. We don't do that. We walk from our car into Starbucks. We smile, we wave, we go back in. It may be at Walmart. We have to talk to a greeter. We find it funny. We make jokes. But in the real world, just as a little bit of a background of my, I want to say credit here. I lived at 6th and Folsom for a decade in San Francisco, which, if you want to talk about homelessness, kind of a good example of where exactly the big problem in San Francisco is, at heart of the Tenderloin. We had multiple guys. I got to know their first names. We would have beers and cigarettes on my front step because that's how you do it when people are living literally on your house. You have to do this. You talk to people as though they're human. You deal with the unhoused like people, not just as this massive homelessness. In Los Angeles, I lived Fairfax and Melrose-ish, more towards the Hollywood side than anything. If you watched the BLM riots, the Adidas store that almost burned down was right around the corner from me. Super fun times. The unhoused there, you dealt with, and they are generally mentally deeply unwell, very sick or exceptionally poor. Most unhoused just live in their cars, and that's it. The mentally unwell walk around. They're free range, as you might say. And in New York, while I was there, almost every other ride, there was someone who was absolutely not in the best space, screaming, yelling, doing all these things. Didn't see a murder. Not one time, because most people who have to deal with humans every day, and you get on the tube, you get on the subway, you get on the bus, whatever it is, you walk down the street, you know there's a different tolerance you have for shit. People who live way out in the middle of fucking nowhere, and this is the reason the discourse around this is completely fucked in America. Anyone who's suburban doesn't understand this at all. I know, I grew up in Littleton, Colorado, famous shithole suburb. That is this problem. People don't talk. So when we talk about this, I really find it just utterly distasteful and kind of gross, Whick, that just a few weeks ago, you were having a discussion and saying things like, hey, you know, we want to have a public comments and marketplace, like you were talking about this, and literally people yelling is like, well, maybe he was being a bit threatening. As soon as it becomes something,
it wasn't. No. This is a fucking really weird way to phrase this. It wasn't. He was just yelling. He was yelling, "I'm going to hurt people."
No, he wasn't.
He absolutely, according to the police report, and I will read it again. The police report said he threatened the people on the car. He wanted food. He wasn't taking no for an answer, and that he would hurt anyone on the train. He didn't care if he got a life sentence.
You mean someone who's crazy yelling on a train? Yeah, that literally,
that he was going to hurt people.
You described like 2 p.m. in Manhattan. You're not describing a unique incident by any meaningful stretch of the imagination. So how many people do you want murdered? Let me just ask that. Are you okay with more
anyone
people being
who
murdered?
Tries, right, to hurt other people?
But he didn't do that.
Should be restrained.
Okay, restrained in a chokehold by a Marine and his 2 buddies, preemptively before they did anything. Just someone
if you are threatening someone. If you were,
but
if
he
someone
didn't threaten
came up to
anyone
you,
specifically.
I'm
he was
going
yelling
to hurt
in general.
you.
Yeah,
that's a threat.
Yes.
Yes.
No, not
no,
in the
it's not a
context of
threat.
the New York City
so
subway.
Someone coming up to your face and says, "I'm going to hurt you," is not a threat. That's what you're saying.
Pretty sure that's not what happened.
Okay. Well, I
I'm
don't
just
know if
saying.
I can deal with you right now.
Like you're being deeply specific now. It went from he threatened the people on the train to he threatened you specifically.
I'm going to hurt people. It doesn't have to be you specifically. It could be like, I'm going to hurt people. If he comes up to you and he's
a
in
mentally
your
crazy
face,
person on the
I'm
subway.
going to hurt people, and you're going to do nothing?
I mean, yes, on the subway.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of gauge whether or not someone's serious or what's happening. Yes. You can do this. You can not do a thing. You can watch. You can watch as people get off at the next stop very often, move between trains very often.
Have you ever been attacked physically? Hurt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So have I, right?
Good.
I wish to God someone had stopped that interaction, right? I wish to God someone had put that guy in a chokehold, right? I'd still have my teeth. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. Right? So this is a pretty privileged position you're taking.
So
like, you can just ignore when people make these threats. I mean, that's fine if you live in a
we're talking about someone who was murdered.
Like that.
We're
that's
literally talking about someone who was murdered.
He was killed.
Preemptively being attacked.
He was killed. That's a difference there. He was killed.
I don't know.
I don't know if he was
15 minutes
of
a chokehold.
He may very well have been.
Really?
He may very well have been.
15 minutes of a chokehold.
Until more information comes out, because I've heard 15 minutes, I've also heard 2. I've also heard 6. I've also heard 3. I don't know. So yes, if he was wrenching on his neck for 15 minutes.
Point of clarification: we have 2 minutes on footage.
Okay.
And he's not responsive. We don't have footage,
No,
for example.
yeah.
If
Like I
anything
said, this
on the
guy was
subway.
grossly negligent. Now, whether it translates to murder, whether there was intent, is something the courts can decide, and I wish they would. And if there was intent, and they do find enough evidence, then convict him, throw him in jail. He murdered someone.
I love how much room we give people to kill a person on the subway in public who wasn't being attacked or doing anything.
Actually, here I've got an excellent question for the whole panel. Okay, what if this didn't take place on the subway? What if this took place in the home of Steven Crowder, after he said, "I'm going to fuck you up" to his wife, and the manservant or whatever, who for whatever reason was not on dog medicine duty that day, jumped up behind Steven Crowder and choked him to death. Not trained. He didn't know how long it would take, but choked him to death. What would the situation remain the same?
It would be very similar in nature, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm good here.
I mean,
thank you, Sunday, for having me on. It's been lovely, Kidology.
I didn't have you. Hey, look, I didn't have you on. You're in Whick server. This is Whick server.
Paid money for me to come on here and do
No.
Man,
Chat paid money for me to bring you on, but Whick brought you on.
That's fair. Thank you for having me, Whick. It was
no
horrifying.
problem. You're cool with people like getting threatened. That's nice to know that people can go around just threatening, and you're just gonna say, "Well, butter up." Buckle up, Buttercup. Just bend over and take it, because if they say they can threaten you, that's okay by me. Minorities, Jewish folks, when they threaten you, you can't do anything about it. You just have to take it. That's a great stance. That's a great way to be. I'm glad you're like that, right? That's really, really great. It's a very privileged position. I'm just
Whick
saying.
is never going to accept a guest invite by me again, so I do
No, this is great content. Like, I would have him on if he wanted to stay. You know what? I feel a little bad, right? Taking him through the ringer like that, but I'll do it all day. Kidology, please. Sorry.
Yeah. I just have somebody in my chat who says that, called Honey, says, I live in New York City and take the subway all the time. I took it today, and it is unique that they yell out, "I'm going to hurt people." So I think, sort of anecdotally, it seems quite exceptional, according to Honey, who takes the subway daily. So, just in support of what you were saying, Whick.
Sure. Like, again, I don't live in New York City. I don't. So I can only go on what other people tell me. And again, as I said at the beginning, if I get information that this is just like from a credible source, to be clear, that this is that the circumstances change, my opinion will change. Because again, I am not justifying what this man did. I am saying on a conceptual level that it is okay under certain conditions to preemptively defend yourself if you are threatened.
Okay, so I've got people in my chat saying threats are not violence. Threats are violence, to be clear, but that doesn't give you carte blanche to use any kind of escalation of violence in retaliation. So, dear friends, we are an hour and a half into the stream. We are 8 minutes into the video. Let's press on.
Look, we like to talk. Go ahead.
And very quickly, Robin Page, thank you for the $10. Not murder, but negligent homicide, because the initial restraint might have been justified, but the method used was not, and the Marine knew or should have known better.
Fondue for $10. Fondue for $10. The reason these things don't work is because addicts want to stay addicted. How do you feel about having buildings that allow people to keep taking drugs, but they can't leave unless they're clean? Not sure what this has to do with the conversation.
This has to do with safe injection site. It actually does have to do with the conversation, but it's probably a bit complicated.
Sure. Yeah. Rabbit hole. I got more. $5 from Champagne Steam Tech. Thanks for hosting interesting ideas, Whick. You're welcome. And yeah, thank you. So that's what I got.
And Kid, if you have any to respond to as well.
No, my chat's been very quiet on the super chat at the moment.
For shame. Kidology's chat, she has been remarkably based in this conversation. Show her some love. Okay, let's press on.
Reportedly, the Marine told everyone to call 911 and get the police down there, and then he ended up dying, which has resulted in the left, like AOC, whether or not people, I don't know if you consider her left, but AOC.
Yeah, she's progressive. She
said this was a public murder. And now you've got protesters calling for this guy to be arrested. They're saying he committed a murder, and I think this is actually a really good example of what is described as anarcho-tyranny, in that you had 25 people pushed onto subway tracks in the past year. You've had like a woman get raped on a train in Philadelphia. And we don't hear a single peep from any of these politicians, from any of these activists, until someone actually stops the guy. If you go back
Okay, and here's the perverseness of this for me, okay? We are not, for some reason, counting this as an example of that. We're dealing with a Marine who appears to be waiting and ready to strangle someone as soon as they behave in an unruly manner on a train.
I mean, like, that's a
But
weird
this
thing.
isn't
Like,
like a
waiting
case
and ready,
of,
like
this
he's
isn't a case
been
of subway
waiting for
violence.
this. I don't know. Maybe he has, but I don't have enough information to say. So,
Puppy,
Said
thank
it
you for
kills
the
him, right?
super chat.
Kills him. He killed him.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when someone is being violent and then someone else acts in self-defense of others and the person dies in the process, now there's all of a sudden calls for, okay, so this guy should be criminally charged, but there was no call for stopping the 25 people being pushed on the subway tracks. That's an ongoing and acceptable thing, I suppose.
I'm never going to sit here and try and defend people pushing people on the subway tracks. That's a crime. Like, that's terrible.
Attempted murder.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if they die. So that's horrible. No one's going to be on the other side of that argument. But in terms of like the guy
think
who
it's
just
murder
got
then,
killed,
technically.
isn't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, doesn't in self-defense the proportionality of what you're doing has to be in response to the actual aggressive actions of the person, right? It has to be proportional. Is that correct? So you feel in your mind that it was a proportional response for him to choke him out to death in that situation because he was going to become such a threat to the person who choked him out.
But you made a big leap right there.
What's the leap?
You're ascribing intent to the Marine to kill.
Oh, I'm not saying he intended to kill him. I never said that, but he did end up killing him, right?
That's immaterial.
Well, no, but what has to be material, Tim, has to be, is
are
he
you
doing
making
what
a
he's doing?
proportionality argument, or are you making?
Yes, I'm asking you that because is what he did proportional to the threat?
Yes.
So
I don't like the proportionality argument. By the way, you guys can tell me to keep going or to pause.
no, well, look, again, I think initially it was proportional, or at least I could see. Again, we don't know what happened before exactly. We don't have video of what happened before. I think the police may or may not. I'm not sure. I know they have more footage than what has been released. But if he was violently threatening people, yes, he should initially have been restrained. When it becomes improportional, when it becomes too much, was when he held that for as long as he did. And that's where I think, okay, the line was crossed. Negligence, probably.
Yeah, and I think when the other two individuals sort of came on board, I mean, that just felt like sort of a social influence mentality, and I think a lot of adrenaline probably running through. I just got a question from somebody. Thank you for the super chat, MJ, again. MJ asks, so if other riders on the subway jumped to go against the other good doers and unalive them, would they be perceived as heroes as well if they stopped somebody from being harmed?
Well, now we're in like that's a really good question actually, and that's a distinct possibility as well. Now we're in like Kyle Rittenhouse territory, where we have in the dark somebody with a gun. He's been chased by one guy. We don't know what provoked the initial chasing. Maybe nothing. He shoots him, and now he's being pursued by other protesters in the crowd. Is he being like are they not at that point responding to somebody who has made precisely that same threat, much more manifest, by the way, like he's actually shot someone at close range in the head. I don't think the people in that riot, of course, had no video footage to clarify who the aggressor was. They just see a guy running with a rifle in the dark in the street. There's at least one body on the ground, and indeed he killed one other person who was responding in kind. We don't tend to treat that other person in the same manner as like some of us are treating the Marine in this case. We're treating the Marine in this case as if his hands are simply clean just because he did that to the right person.
Well, I don't think the rioters, right? None of them would or should be charged because you're exactly right. In their perception, from their perception, they saw a guy got shot, and they were chasing after the guy that shot him. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with that. But the question becomes, right, do we want to charge someone for making a call that a reasonable person would have made but ended up being wrong, right? So a reasonable person who sees someone shoot another person, we got to stop the shooter, right? They don't know the situation. They don't know that it was in self-defense. They don't know any of that. We can infer that a reasonable person would want to stop the shooter, right? And so we don't charge them for stopping the shooter. So if the rioters had come, found Rittenhouse, and beat him up, they shouldn't have been charged either. Now, this isn't something we want to encourage or valorize, right? This isn't something I wouldn't call anyone in this case a good guy, right? But at the same time, when we're
So here's
meting
the
out punishment, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Here's the problem. there are two immediate problems with that approach. And it's the problem with this proportionate approach generally, that this emphasis on proportionality. First of all, it is extremely easy for someone to rationalize literally anybody being a threat. Like, for example, let's say by some severely unfortuitous sequence of events, I ended up trapped on a desert island with Destiny, and we had a limited amount of food. I can reasonably conjecture, based on what I know about this person, that if we run out of food and it's a choice between death and eating me, he will eat me first. Therefore, am I entitled to preemptively kill him? No, I don't think that's reasonable at all. Additionally, like, judging someone as threatening bleeds very easily into kind of a post hoc rationalization for excessive action or excessive force. So in this particular case, we actually have not even entertained the idea that there's a threshold between him putting his arm around his neck and like him engaging in some escalation of whatever it was he was doing. We're sort of treating it as if as soon as this person engages in any kind of threatening action, that gives carte blanche to anybody else in the subway to do essentially whatever they want to him. So long as it doesn't last for a long period of time.
Sunday. No, again, had the first response from this guy to pull out a gun and shoot Neely, yeah, I'm like, whoa, dude, you just shot a guy. What are you doing, right? Like, that's entirely inappropriate, right? But I think that there is, like, chokeholds, while dangerous, aren't necessarily fatal, right? You can do it, and if you do it properly, it works and it's safe. The problem is...
Well, what if somebody shot him? What if instead of a chokehold...
That would be murder. Because of proportionality, right?
But hang on, if this person... You don't know if he doesn't have a weapon, right? Do you know how, like it is no guarantee, as if you watch, like, any cop videos that talk about, like, the dangers of attempting, like, de-escalation when someone's approaching you fast. There is no guarantee that your shots will even bring the person down in time for something like a knife to not kill you.
Again, if
things
he
like
pulled out
hats
a
can
knife,
have razor blades
right?
in them. A well-placed punch or a shoe, like, it doesn't take a lot to kill a person. People are simultaneously remarkably durable and remarkably fragile.
But probability comes into play here. Like, yes, you can die from a single punch, but it's vanishingly rare that you will die from a single punch. It's possible. It's just not likely. Whereas if you get stabbed in the neck, it's much more probable that you will die, and therefore it allows for a greater amount of force to stop that individual as quickly as possible. I think that at the end of the day, while post hoc you can justify, and there is some issues with it, it comes down to, do we want to go by results based, or do we want to go by principle based? Now, the result based being, like, results based thinking is like, I did an action, it resulted in this result, therefore that action was good or bad. I don't know if that's true. I don't like that way of thinking, right?
Well,
I could jump off a cliff and I could survive, but that doesn't mean my decision to jump off the cliff was a good one or okay.
No, sure,
right?
but by the same token, I think good principles will take results into account. So, for example, if in this particular case the Marine had punched the guy because he had told him to back down and he got into his face and he knocked his head on the ground in the wrong way and he died, we'd be having a similar conversation, but it would be significantly different. We'd be talking about somebody who had somebody really close up in his face, and at a certain level, at a certain psychological level, some kind of action was compelled. There was a point at which the Marine lost, or the ex-Marine or whatever he was, lost his freedom to gauge the situation and respond thoughtfully and with meditated upon intent. As soon as you have somebody coming up behind somebody, that's a different question. He is the initiator. So I don't think, like, the chokehold itself categorically counts as self-defense when it's from behind and the other guy hadn't actually initiated an attack.
Again, categorically no, but again, was he in someone else's face? Then I think restraining him was like, so what if he didn't chokehold? What if they three guys just tackled this dude to the ground, okay?
That probably would have been unwise anyways.
Huh?
That probably would have been wrong anyways. Like, I think at the point
really?
that somebody is being
you think that would have been wrong for if someone is being verbally threatening to another person.
Yes.
For
let's
other
play this out. So
I'll
give you
restraint.
I'll give you a scenario. Yeah, I'll give you a scenario. So let's say there's a 7-year-old woman on the subway, okay? And he's approaching her and he's saying all the stuff that you've said he said. And he goes up to her face. At that point, the appropriate course of action is to walk in between her, and if he resists, then shove him back and then do whatever. That's when the altercation can take place. As soon as you're in a situation where this person is walking back and forth, and you wait until his back's turned to you and you grab him around the neck, there's only two outcomes there: severe injury or death.
That only works. This reasoning only works if you're as strong or stronger than the person that you're trying to restrain.
Indeed, which is why I asked you.
If I'm a 5'8" dude and there's this 6'6" GigaChad built with muscle, yeah, I'm gonna hit him from behind if I need to hit him. I ain't gonna go toe to toe with this guy. If I think he needs to be restrained, I am going to do what it takes to restrain him without dying. Right? Like,
so if he was shot in the back, you would consider that to be a reasonable response?
No, because I'm not talking about shooting. But I'm talking about physically restraining with
I understand.
my arms and strength, right?
I think it's unreasonable to assume that real life operates like a video game where you can expect if you perform a lethal action just a little bit less time, it will not result in a lethal result.
What?
Never mind. Kidology, do you want to weigh in on it all, or shall we continue?
Let's I do have a question from somebody in my chat.
Oh, I do have one as well, but so $5 from the trip. I'm sorry. I wonder what Brooks and President Sunday expected from Kidology. Both were shocked by Kid's take on this. Also, murder and kill aren't the same. Murder requires evidence. Okay, sorry. Go on.
I actually had high expectations for Kidology after a Destiny conversation. Well done, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You're one in a few. My super chat says, thank you so much, Reinhardt, for the super chat. What if 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 did this on an aeroplane? Would that change anything?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the more enclosed a space and the more trapped people are, it does escalate things by nature. I think there is a natural escalation to these of what is reasonable person's expectation and fear here. If you are on an airplane, 10,000, 20,000 feet in the air, right? Miles. I don't, not miles, obviously. 20,000 feet in the air, right? And some guy jumps up, starts yelling how he's going to hurt everyone, right? Or hurt anyone on this plane if he doesn't get what he wants. Then tackle the guy. Restrain the guy. Stop him. Don't wait for him to start killing people or hurting people. Stop him first.
The plane's a bit of a fraud example just because we have the history of plane jackings recently. Or not recently now, but like we worry about that kind of thing because the nature of it is different. If somebody is belligerent on a plane, there's a possibility, especially given it's a much more involved process to get on a plane. If somebody engages in language like "I'm going to hurt everybody on this plane," on a plane, there's a real possibility if this person is not subdued that he can bring the entire vehicle down. That's not so much a threat on a subway. I think in addition to that, once again, like if we're talking about like how they subdue the person, if this person has been determined to essentially just be an unarmed guy or not armed to the point where we're worried about the plane blowing up, an unarmed guy who is having an episode, talking him down, walling him off, coming between him and whoever he's harassing, that makes eminently more sense than coming up behind him, putting him to a stranglehold. That just opens too many doors. And once again, like, it's just one of those things where that would be a questionable action by itself if he had held him for the exact maximum length of time that was reasonably considered to be safe. We'd be having a different conversation. Like, oh, he had like a drug overdose. I didn't know. He was being like, this is a little bit more clear cut even than the what's his name? The guy who started the thing. The guy. I don't know why.
While you think of that, Fondue for $5 says the Marine ruined his pacifist run by misclicking the lethal takedown button. I mean, fair, but dark.
George Floyd. That's it.
Yeah.
This is a more clear-cut case than George Floyd. This is somebody who had held him for 15 minutes. That's a long time. People say 15
if
minutes.
It was
6 minutes,
15
frankly,
minutes,
is a long time.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
again,
like 3 minutes is a
they're
long
arguing
time.
in my chat whether it was 15, 3, 2.
Let's say 2 minutes.
6.
Let's say 2 minutes. The 2 minutes of footage we have has him not resisting. We don't see him die.
Sure.
We don't know what we see. You see the problem here. So it's not Rittenhouse, Jordan. Come on.
Yes, I think
So-
once you constrain him and you've got him in that chokehold, if he isn't resisting, if he's going limp, then you are doing something wrong. Then I think that is definitely.
I wouldn't have let him up
what Sunday's talking
entirely,
about.
right? Like I wouldn't have let him up, but I would absolutely have gotten off the chokehold. I would at that time
Yes,
let him
yes,
go from that, but
exactly.
you keep him,
Yes.
you sit on him, or you keep him down, right? Because again,
Moreover, once
letting
you've
up-
restrained him and he's unresponsive, you make sure he's alive. That's not your priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes.
The threat that he was going
It
to
is
do
proportional to subdue someone that is threatening other people and saying he'll die in the process.
and end up killing him, even if that was.
So see now you're doing it again. You're ascribing intent.
No, I'm not ascribing intent.
So-
I'm saying the results. This is what happened. The guy's dead. He's dead, right?
Results are
right.
immaterial to the proportionality of action.
So the proportionality of action in your mind was justified for what he was doing, his actual actions.
He
on
held the guy on the ground while he said call
and
911.
killed him and choked him until he died.
You're doing it again.
No, you keep saying I'm doing it again. I'm saying this is
You
the
are-
end results. I'm not saying this is what he meant to do. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. I don't know what's in his heart. Neither do you. None of us know what he meant to do that day
yes,
when he woke
absolutely.
up. Right?
If someone is threatening other people, you are allowed to subdue them.
And then would it be like an
the point of
involuntary
death.
manslaughter?
So
Is
see, you
No, but this is what happened. It's to the point of death. So you have.
It's not criminal.
It's not. I'm not saying he intended to kill him. That's the difference, right? But if he ended up dying as a result of that, was that proportional? I think
Yes.
He needed to be killed.
No,
or he
see,
could have killed someone
hold
else.
on, stop that. You can't.
What?
You keep trying to say needed to be. No.
But that's what happened.
The Marine.
That's the end result.
You're saying the Marine tried to kill him.
No, I didn't say that.
Then why?
you
why
were saying
then
that.
why
I'm saying
would
that.
you
You're putting
say,
words in my mouth. I'm saying that's what
hold
ended up
on,
happening.
Let me respond. Then why would you say needed to be
Okay.
killed?
Because
Why did
what
you
he
say
did to him, his chokeout, ended up with the guy dying.
Oh, this is just our argument all over again, but in a more dumb format.
I have an interesting question
Please.
just from somebody in my chat.
Please.
MJ, thank you for the super chat again. MJ asks, say if a woman gets essayed or verbally violated every day. Wait, women get essayed or verbally violated every day by men. Are they now allowed to use these tactics, or is that going too far?
If every day someone is sexually assaulting them, they do have the right to stop them.
Or verbally abused?
Are we
say.
saying like are we talking about like by the same person, or are we saying like in terms of they go onto a subway and this occurs?
I think what MJ, just based on having read what MJ has been saying, I think the idea is that if you don't sort of uphold sort of the tenets of law and order, you sort of have this alternative aspect where you're sort of paranoia in seeing the potential threat of somebody such as a big 𝕵𝖎𝖎 guy or
I think
a man who approaches you
yeah,
when you're
yeah.
alone.
I get what
Should you
you're
be able to act preemptively in such a way? If that makes
Well,
sense.
I sexual assault is like another level compared to what this person was doing and what these people were dealing with. I think this is the kind of consideration that would factor into how you sentence somebody who had killed somebody on the subway. I don't think this would factor into justifying the action of preemptively killing someone who appears to your judgment to be similar to somebody who would sexually assault you.
Well, let's not talk about killing, right? Let's say, again, on the subway, this
Same deal. I don't think somebody would be within their rights to pepper spray somebody because this
Really?
person had some kind of resemblance. Yeah, no.
No, we're
at
not
all.
talking resemblance. I'm talking the same dude. Like, the same dude starts sexually assaulting them every day on the subway.
Well, I think the
When did they get to pepper spray them?
Well, I think Kidology was saying that this was somebody new. This was not like the same person every time. If this is the same person every time, this would be retaliation for a precedented attack. In which case, like, of course, and in fact, frankly, like if the police are not interfering, and this is being like something of that scale is allowed to repeat itself with the same individual, if she pushed him onto the tracks, I'd be having a very different argument about this.
I think that even it only takes once. If someone is being sexually assaulted, and if you're sexually assaulting someone and you get pepper sprayed, you fucked around, you found out, buddy. Right? Like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't feel bad for you.
I'd have no pity for him, but I think
I don't think the woman should be charged either.
I'll
I'll take that brave stance. Yeah, a woman defending herself against sexual assault shouldn't be charged.
Look, I wouldn't. Well, we're not defending herself. We're talking about this has already transpired, and that she's responding after the fact in a separate event.
Sure, but the
So a
again,
woman
it's
who's
not
been
like
a
the
woman who's been sexually assaulted in advance of going to the authorities or alerting anybody else goes out of her way to murder the person afterwards. I would feel no pity for him, and I would frankly not even feel much condemnation for the woman at all. In fact, I would probably think in the back of my mind, yeah, you know what, I get it, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can allow that, right?
I think again that context comes into play here. If every day she would walk down the street and some man, a different one each time, verbally assaulted her, right? Sexually,
Okay.
verbally assaulted her.
Whick, I have some bad news for you, okay? You are a bearded man in a dark room with a hoodie.
It's true.
You look to a lot of people like the stereotype.
It's true.
I look to a lot of people like the stereotype in a different context. So,
And if
are
every
people
time,
therefore...
well, this is why if I may finish my example here, this is why context is important. So if every day she would walk by, a guy would approach her and start sexually assaulting her or verbally assaulting her, and and then I came up, looking as I do, right, with my teeth and my hoodie and I'm not very threatening man, I don't think.
The angel of vengeance, yes.
So I come up to her and I start engaging with her in the same way that these do, and I get pepper sprayed. Yeah, I'm not going to arrest that person, right?
If you approach somebody and you got pepper sprayed because she had a
No,
bad
it's
experience
not.
with other people?
Again, it's not me just approaching her. It's me engaging with her in the same way that these other people do, right?
Like verbally? Just
Yes,
saying
verbally. If I started verbally harassing her.
Kid, you look like you have something on your mind.
Yes, I was just thinking of, do you know in films when they have those cliche scenes where there's a girl at night, she's walking, and then a man follows her and he like calls to her and she starts running, he starts running faster, he catches up and he hands her like a purse that she's dropped or something, or she's dropped an earring or something like that. If that sort of situation happened, right, and instead of just turning around and like screaming, a woman sprayed him in the face with pepper spray.
Or shot him.
Yes, exactly. I think that's
I think at the point of pursuit,
The
completely
shot him
justified.
is a lot different though than the pepper spray. We can't pretend these are the same, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because the stakes are the same. So you are being pursued. Your life or extreme injury, psychological and physical, is at stake. If you are able, in my judgment, to use the weapons you have to hand if you are being pursued in that situation. I think that's completely reasonable.
$5 from Fondue to ask, what if you see a woman getting sexually assaulted? Do you have the right to intervene? What if it ends up with you killing them while trying to intervene?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an easy one. I think we all
Yeah,
agree.
the issue here, once again, is that this guy didn't instigate the physical violence. If he did, this guy took a swing at somebody, if he like started grappling somebody and then somebody put him in a chokehold and held him for too long and he was just like in shock or whatever and he didn't know when to let go.
I hate to do this, but I think we disagree because I think that his verbal assertion that I'm going to hurt people on this train initiated it. I think that was the initial go, right? Where it did justify restraint. Not in the way they did it, to be clear. I want to be very clear. Not in the way they did it, but restraint, physical restraint at that point was absolutely on the table, absolutely morally justified, absolutely okay.
But why? This is what gets strange, though. Why, in the absence of any attempt to deter, to push back, this person is immediately grabbed from behind. He's put into a chokehold. That's what a chokehold is. It's from behind. Nobody steps in front of him. Nobody tries to isolate him. Nobody tries to remove him from where other passengers are. And we're supposed to take it on faith that this person's fear was so great, this trained Marine, that he just didn't know to not continue squeezing this person's throat past the 2-minute mark at least. And that's a big leap
hold it
of
for
faith.
2 minutes either. Like if you're chokeholding someone, like 30 seconds, maybe a minute max.
Yeah, the footage we have is 2 minutes with him being subdued.
Yeah, again, that's why I think he was negligent, because he shouldn't have held it for that long, right?
I don't think that's negligent. I think at the point,
But initially, coming up behind him, and this is my point here, initially, when he came up behind him and restrained him, I think that's okay, because as soon as, if you want to, this isn't a turn-based game, right? Where they take a move, then you take a move, then they take a move, then you take a move. No, if you feel, right, and you have reasonable expectation that a threat has been made and violence is imminent,
what if he
you
garroted
stop
him?
it with the, well, what if you're wrong in the other way?
No, I didn't say wrong. No, hang on. I didn't say wrong. I said, what if he garroted him? What if this is somebody like you, doesn't have Marine training? Well, careful, cowboy. What if this is somebody without Marine training? What if it's somebody who's smaller, but he happens to have like a mouse cord, and he just goes, and he thinks, I'm going to hold this until he passes out. I'm just trying to incapacitate him. Would your judgment change under those circumstances?
I can imagine a scenario where I would be okay with it, but only if the dude's like 6'6", 250 pounds, all muscle, and the dude doing the garroting is like 5'3", soaking wet, 100 pounds. Then yeah, there was really no other way to restrain him. But without those kind of specific niche circumstances, then I think the use of a weapon escalates it. But my point here is, right, like this idea that in an ideal world, just trying the step-by-step process to de-escalate verbally first, like if you are wrong and this person is going to hurt someone, you've just given them that opportunity, right? And I understand that these aren't perfect things. And again, I wouldn't call any of the people here who acted a hero. That's ridiculous. But also, I would not, at least for the initial restraint, morally condemn them for that, right?
I have to run to the washroom quickly. I'll be right back.
Okay.
You two entertain the audience.
Titty Boy, thank you for the super chat.
Titty Boy, I like the name.
Oh, right, okay. I'm a bit too English for that, I think. Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6 if the Marine felt like the guy was a danger to everybody on the train.
Well, at the end of the day, yeah, because if you, again, I wasn't there. I don't know how reasonable it was. All I know is from the reports given by the passengers, the police, and the 2 minutes of video that we have.
Yeah.
Given that, initially restraining the guy, nothing wrong with that. I think that's reasonable. Wrenching on his neck for an excessive amount of time, unreasonable. You need to face a consequence for that. It shouldn't be first-degree murder, obviously, but some sort of manslaughter charge would be perfectly fine, I think.
Yeah. Yes. No, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. I think it's easier to just reflect on these things, obviously, and to think, I could have done something differently. And I would hope that the Marine now is thinking of what he could have done differently. I think that inevitably in those situations, adrenaline is high. Everything seems a lot worse than it probably is on reflection. So I can understand that.
It does. It's different being an observer after the fact from being in it, right? And
exactly.
And I think the Monday morning quarterbacking, right, that's being done here is it's not surprising, but it is interesting. The Trib for $2 says, I have a bigger issue with the other two in the scene. I'm curious what that issue is. You don't elaborate. Please elaborate in chat if you want. Gang, if you're liking this content and just, super chats, follows, bits, subs, like the stream, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Gang, I could really use the support. You really helped me out, so thank you. Okay, anyway. Welcome back, Sunday.
Why, thank you. Shall we press on?
Yes.
Died. So that was the end result. So his proportional response to what he thought was a threat was that I'm going to choke him out. I'm not trying to kill him, but I'm going to choke him out. Whether or not he dies is going to be something that we're just going to remain to be on the cards, right? This is chance. We'll leave it up to chance.
So you are making a huge leap right there.
There's no leap, Tim. What he's doing is that proportional. Is choking someone with the possibility of death. With the possibility of death.
Yes,
okay, so
absolutely.
So
I'll tell you this. Let me tell you. So if someone tried illegally entering my home,
sure,
I will use whatever force necessary to stop them from illegally entering my home and illegally entering my home, right? I have the legal justification in the state that I live in to use whatever force necessary to stop someone from entering my home illegally. Now you can't invite someone in, and there's actually some legal barriers here. Like if someone actually
Sorry,
walks up
I
to your house
talked
and the
too
door is
much.
open and they walk in, that's actually not an
Thank you
illegal
for
entry.
$2.
It is to a certain degree, but it's like trespass. It's like your door was open, there was no obstruction, and then you'll make an argument about entering the domicile could be considered 4th-degree burglary, depending on which state you're in. If they actually open the door and enter, they've now committed felony burglary, and you are entitled in West Virginia to use whatever force necessary to stop someone from illegally entering your house. That doesn't mean you just intend to actually kill someone. So in terms of we're out in the street, someone is threatening someone else, you are legally entitled to subdue them. Now,
even if that's even in the act of doing that, you could kill them.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because where you're going with it is like, what act of subduing would be permitted in your mind then? Like holding his hands tightly?
One that doesn't have a possibility of death, I would say.
Well,
Because
give me one in your martial arts expertise.
Zero, absolutely zero.
Okay, so
zero.
there's a
and I think I can contend that no one here has any, right?
Well,
sorry, am I in a judo
I
room?
just watched a lot of movies.
No, but
Sharp elbows.
but no, none of us have black belts. We don't know this shit. We're just a bunch of people who talk on the internet,
but not
right?
going black belts. I mean, I have hostile environment training and I have some minimal martial arts training. Minimal. I've done some kung fu, taekwondo.
So once again, there's no experts here to
and
talk about
capoeira.
this. Yeah.
Don't mess with Tim Pool, guys. He's a dangerous man.
However, if someone is threatening harm against another person and 3 people find it reasonable to subdue him and the person dies, that person was in the process of committing a crime. If you lose your life in the process of committing a crime, I'm not going to blame the victims for this, right? Would you blame the victims for this?
When you're saying victims, you mean the people who killed him?
The people who are being attacked.
But were they attacked prior, or did they?
No, here Lance is actually like failing to track the actual course of events, which is odd, given that I've been reading about this in real time now. The people he was attacking were not the people. We're using attacking very loosely here. The people he was threatening, menacing, were not the people who subdued him.
I also think
subdued him apparently from behind.
His argument that you cannot use any kind of restraint that has a possibility of lethality is silly.
Literally everything can produce lethality.
Yeah, it's just a silly metric. But that's
scaring him can produce.
I do think it's I also think though Tim Pool's not. I don't like his argument here either, right? That he seems to be saying or implying that any and all action is okay if they do certain things. And I don't think that's true either, right? I don't think, again, like if someone breaks into your home, I don't think it gives you carte blanche to like shoot them till like 20 times in the chest, right? But I do think like context does give you some leeway here, and I don't want it to be so strict, right? That people are hesitating too much before they try to defend someone else or themselves.
Well, I think at the point where it's somebody breaking into your home. Sorry, Kidology, you go first.
Oh no, so I was just going to say that, I mean, are we distinguishing between, for instance, about 2 weeks ago, I believe, in Virginia or West Virginia, a woman and her friends drove into private property. They were lost, and man who owned the property and the land shot at them and killed her. I mean, is that justified? Is that seen as something that you are allowed to do?
Yeah, I think the notion of it being on private property is not sufficient. Like, I would say if somebody like breaks into your home through the door after they've been threatening you through the door and you have a gun trained on the door as they come in, then I'm not going to come harder on a person for shooting 20 times as opposed to 1, right? Like that doesn't follow logically. Yeah. If we're talking about on a subway where people are observing a person pacing back and forth, and behaving in a threatening manner, verbally and physically, it's a different story. At that point, it's like, okay, we have a person who is clearly mentally unwell. They are engaging in menacing behavior, but they haven't physically threatened anyone yet. How do you respond to this? Well, the first thing you would do is you would try to talk them down, or if you're not going to talk them down, you would come between them and other people who may be threatened by them if you're going to interfere at all. I think the problem here, once again, is that we are dealing with people essentially taking it as carte blanche permission to just do whatever they will to somebody because in their judgment he was acting in a menacing fashion.
I
that
don't
can't
think
stand.
That's true. Right? I don't think that's true. Temperance Kill for $10 says when you're in a fight, there's little thinking involved. You're in a state of constant reaction with no thoughts as to what the results of specific actions will be other than ending the conflict.
True, but that's sort of like...
I don't think that's enough. Just real quick,
Yes.
I want to respond to that. While true, I do think that you should be held accountable if you, through negligence, right, you end up killing someone. And like I said, it sounds like this guy was negligent. That's all.
Well, I don't think we disagree that any kind of physical violence was off the table. The issue, though, is the nature of it in particular. Walking up behind somebody and grabbing them around the throat is not the same thing as attempting to talk them down, failing, attempting to deter them physically, failing, and then having no choice but to restrain them around the neck. This was their first order of business. That is taking carte blanche. That is immediately going through, like, I'm sorry, of all people, a trained Marine not knowing that having your arm around someone's neck not just can, but will kill them in excess of a few seconds sometimes instantaneously. I don't, that's not,
I don't
that's
think
a
the
hard sell.
instantaneously is reasonable, right? Like I don't like
It can
vanishing
be.
rare. It can't just
You
like
collapse
a
his,
punch.
you collapse his
Sure.
throat, you cause shock,
But that's
you do
just
something to his blood
that's-
pressure, like...
I mean, like yes, and through punching them, they could die, right? But it's vanishing.
Yeah,
it's not.
Look, I'd have an issue with him punching him behind the head as well. The difference, though, is that in the event where he's facing him down and he like becomes physical, punching him at that point becomes an automatic response to an external stimulus. It's not him deciding this is what I'm going to do to this person, which is necessarily what's entailed in coming up behind a person and putting them into a chokehold. That has to be premeditated. You can't do that by accident.
The biggest impasse I think we're having is I do not think the step of verbal de-escalation was strictly necessary in this
I think
case.
it was strictly mandated as a prerequisite to any sort of escalation after that.
And that's where we disagree, because I don't think so. I think as soon as you start, well, yes, that's best practice. I might agree with you. In most cases, that's best practice. I don't think it's strictly necessary.
What about this situation, as you understand it, necessitated, created like any parameters wherein it becomes necessary for somebody to walk up behind the person and put them into a chokehold?
Necessitate is a very
If
very
we're talking
loaded
about
term.
if we're talking about action that can kill another citizen, it has to be necessity.
It does
has to be.
not. I
It
again
does.
because
It
again
has to be necessary. Every single case.
strictly necessary to punch someone, right? Like, what? If
Yeah.
you're trying to stop someone from doing some violence, right?
I would say if somebody is engaged in violence towards you actively, as in they are shoving you and pushing you and maybe hitting you as well, punching them is absolutely within the realm of necessary retaliation. When we're talking about coming up behind someone, unless they have a gun, like I'm sorry, a gun or a knife or anything, or
Or
at the
they're
very least
bigger
they've
than you.
initiated violence. No, I don't think you
You don't
have...
think so? You think some
No.
5'5" guy should have to
Whick.
to stand
No, no,
toe to
hang
toe
on.
with a 6'6" guy that's 250 pounds, right? Is all muscle. You think that you have to fight fair? What?
No, this isn't about fighting fair. At this point, we haven't even had a fight yet. I don't think that because, for example, you being 2 inches shorter than me means that you are now licensed to walk up behind me and strangle me to death just because you don't think
You keep
win
adding
one-on-one in a
strangle to
slugfest.
death. Obviously, I'm
That's what
against
happens.
strangling to death. I have publicly condemned the strangling
How
to death.
about just strangling? Period.
Yeah, to stop you, to if I felt like if you were threatening Kidology, if you were in Kidology's face saying, I'm going to hurt people on this train, I'm going to hurt them, I don't care if I get a life sentence, I think that it's perfectly reasonable, perfectly fine for me to come up behind you and restrain you somehow. Whether that be chokehold, grabbing you around the arms, whatever I felt was the least amount of effort necessary. And I give leeway because, again, adrenaline's pumping in that situation. It could escalate. Like, there's so many unknowns in that situation, right? You don't know if the other guy has a weapon on him. You don't know if the other guy's like some kind of trained combatant. You don't know how crazy this guy is. Like,
but you don't know
I think
that
it's
about
reasonable
anybody.
to try to restrain you from behind. Yes.
But Wick, what you're talking about basically justifies every single person who has a schizophrenic episode and kills their friend because they think they're a vampire.
It does
Like-
not.
But it literally does, though. You're literally saying, "Oh, I conjecture this person based upon their body language might have a weapon." Like what? Doesn't make any sense.
If I think you have a weapon, and
There's been nothing about the situation to
to
indicate the guy was armed or that he was more of a danger than just
even if I think you're
a
just
guy being
bigger than
belligerent.
me. If I think, man, I can't stop this guy going toe to toe, right? I can't stop him. If I go toe to toe with this guy, if I square up and do this like honor duel or whatever, I'm gonna get my ass beat.
No. It's not about an honor duel. Like at the point where this person gets physical, like, and everybody starts restraining him, like 10 guys jump on him. I'd have no problem with that. Like, that's fine. But what we're talking about is a situation in which he has literally only been verbal, very non-specifically verbal. He doesn't appear to have started an altercation. In fact, the only altercation appears to have been begun once they tried to restrain him. Restrain him from what? I am not entirely certain.
But
since
he
appears to only have been
did start a
walking around
verbal
speaking.
altercation. He was threatening people on the all money. People giving him money. Trib 1 says
Yeah.
optimal versus reasonable. We don't punish for people being suboptimal. Restraining from the back can be reasonable. Death is a possibility in either case. Testicle Johnson for $5.50 in Canadian money, which isn't real money, but I'll accept it anyway, says, if the dude was white, no one would care. I bet the people who choked him out voted for the Democrat.
What?
Look,
Was he white? I don't know. I don't know anything about him.
Kidology, go.
No, I was just reacting to the.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't think the situation was racially motivated. Like in that moment, I think it was just a lack of foresight, really, in a lot of it. I do think, however, the response would be very different if Nelly was white, at least by the public and by everyone on social media. But I think that's because the situation has inevitably turned into a political one.
All right, shall we press on?
Tries to do him.
So-
do we have footage before?
No,
if it
I don't.
begins?
So in New York,
Yeah.
for example, if you go up to someone and threaten them, you've committed a crime, right? You've committed a criminal act of violence against another person by threatening them and going up to their face, right?
And so you're saying at that point you have the ability to proportionally respond with violence.
Yeah, actually, there's a video of this. Myth Informed has it. 7 years ago, this man was called a hero for diffusing violence by putting another man in a chokehold. A man in the subway was getting up in people's faces, and he was threatening them, and another man got up behind him and put him in a chokehold, and he was put on national television, and he was celebrated as a hero for doing so. So this is what I'm talking about, anarcho-tyranny. I feel like you're latching onto this completely from a point of, you don't have knowledge on proper technique for subduing an individual, nor
None of us do.
nor the legal expertise.
None of us do as well.
But see that's kind of an absurd thing to just outright. Well, look.
What do we think about that case?
I don't know anything about it, so I can't say.
Okay.
I'm going to say this guy committed a murder and should go to prison, but I'm not an expert, and neither are you. Therefore, he should be convicted.
I never said that. I'm actually asking questions because these are things that I don't fully understand about. Is it legal for him to do what he did?
Yes, that's why he
it is
wasn't
proportionally
charged.
legal.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why he wasn't charged. He was released. However, in this day and age, what's likely going to happen is a narco-tyranny. People go out in the streets, they protest, and the police say, for political reasons, we're going to go find this guy and we're going to arrest him.
But I don't know. It depends. Unfortunately, we don't have footage of what happened before the chokehold.
That's what I'd like to know.
But
Yeah.
if there's enough people on the train that are witness to what was happening, and they're like, "Yo, he was threatening all of us," then I think the cops are not going to mess with that guy.
And that's what was reported. And there were 3 men trying to subdue him as he fought back. So there's no debate that this guy was acting violently and threatening people, and even said he was prepared to die. At that point, you have what could be a terroristic threat.
The Temple's wrong here. The police report does not say he was acting violently at all, and not retaliating after being put into a chokehold, I think, is the appropriate response.
He was acting aggressively, however. We can say he wasn't acting violently, but he was acting aggressively and threateningly. Right.
For the 15 minutes that he was in a chokehold.
Let's
Before.
meet in the middle and let's say 5 minutes.
Yeah. So
Still,
before,
that's-
Yeah.
according to the police reports, at least that I've read, he was acting in a threatening manner. He was acting in an aggressive manner. He wasn't being physically violent. I don't think anyone's saying that, but he was being verbally and physically aggressive and threatening.
What if I was sitting right next to you on the subway, Whick, and I was just staring at you like this, and breathing
Don't
heavily
tempt me
the
with a
entire
good
time?
I'd be like, well, you know, are we gonna fuck or are we gonna fight? Let's figure it out, right?
Would that not be threatening though?
To an extent, but
Would somebody be justified in observing this and grabbing you around the neck, or would
No.
you expect something else first?
but if for example you were doing this and then you started talking about how you wanted to hurt me and you didn't care if you got a life sentence, then yes, someone seeing that, I think it gives them license to step in.
To step in, sure, but you're not being very committal here. Not just step in. In fact, not step in at all without him even knowing of your existence. Just
Yep. I think that gives you a chance to restrain him. Chokehold, probably not, but grabbing you by the arms and pushing you away, yeah, that's fine.
I think if a guy got him trained and screamed, "I'm going to cause harm to people," and then said he was willing to die, you'd probably want to stop him, because there's signs all over the subway saying if you see something, say something. And I suppose we could go the route of when 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 had that video, there was a guy in a subway with a knife stabbing people, and the cop said, "We're not going to get involved at all." And then some guy had to try and intervene himself. It's funny, that guy's a hero.
Yeah, that was, I think, oh yeah, here it is. Matt Walsh retweeted 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝑔𝖼's tweet from 6 hours ago and asking specifically, what are they supposed to do? What are people supposed to do in this situation? Are they supposed to sit there? If someone's screaming, they're gonna hurt somebody? You just sit there and wait until they actually hurts the person, and then you respond?
And I'm just curious, honest question. We have a story from the Daily Mail from October. 25 victims have been shoved in front of subway cars so far this year. 2 victims were killed. Where was the protest?
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's just
where was
interesting.
the-
I think,
What?
sorry.
Yeah, no, go on, please.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that before all of this, clearly, I would just hazard that people had established that this individual wasn't mentally well based on the things that he was saying about wanting food, about his mother, about not wanting to live anymore. I think there's a difference between that and then saying all the things that he said, such as about wanting to harm people, relative to somebody just getting on the train and yelling in a very sort of non-mental manner about wanting to harm people. I think there is a distinction to be drawn between that, which isn't being drawn, at least by what Matt Walsh was saying. I think if somebody who was clearly mentally ill, as Neely was, for instance, a man who was a military man who was yelling on the train that I was on and said something like, I'm going to punch you. I think it comes across very differently based on just the mental faculties at play. I think that distinction needs to be made more, which it doesn't seem to be by at least Tim Pool and Matt Walsh.
Do we, I'm just curious, do any of you, have you dealt with like severely mentally ill people, either in your friend group, your family, just in your work, anything like that?
Yep.
Yeah, once. Not somebody that I knew, but
So,
yes.
My uncle, I have 2 uncles. Well, I have more than that, but 2 uncles that I'm close to. One is a paranoid schizophrenic, and he does, on occasion, get violence. Never with me, right? But he has been violent towards my other uncle. He has had several episodes that were violent in nature. He currently, even though we offer a place for him to stay, he chooses to live in the woods, right? He's got a lot of issues, right? When he does get violent, even aggressively, verbally violent, right? I hate to use that word with verbal, right? But aggressively verbal, let's say, right?
Yeah, I'm going to log that one away.
Aggressively, verbally threatening. I'm correcting myself. It can be terrifying. And he's not in his right mind, so you don't know what he's going to do or what he can do. So, again, if you see that happening, or if I had seen that happening, it would be hard for me not to, if I felt I could, safely step in and try to stop it somehow physically, right? Like, because I know what's happening. I know what's about to happen, right?
I don't think anyone's arguing that it would not be appropriate for some stranger to step in and try to stop whatever he was doing from taking place. I think the issue people have primarily is that this is a person who is engaging in a specific action that even children know can kill someone very quickly.
I guess. Go on.
From behind. Like, we're not even talking about, like, this is the culmination of a struggle in which this person's, like, hopped up on something and he will not stay down. And no matter how long he holds him down, he gets right back up. And so he gives up and he holds him down longer. This appears to be somebody holding him in place after he's been completely subdued. And afterwards, we find out that there wasn't even a physical altercation preceding it. They initiated. And we have people's word that he was as threatening as he was. Like, it gets a lot more dicey than that, right?
video footage of it.
There is video footage of it.
Is it public?
Yes.
Public video footage?
And I can't play it on YouTube.
Oh, for God's sake, Lance. He came into this without looking at the footage. Like, I didn't look at the footage before this, but like he came onto Tim Pool without looking at the footage.
Yeah, we're not in the same situation, so yeah. Go ahead.
Well, yo, there's video footage of people being pushed in front of trains. And where's AOC? Where's any of these protesters? Nowhere to be found. Anarcho-tyranny is that when the criminals do it, as explained in, what was it, Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago, when a criminal does this act in the Soviet Union, that's just a criminal, that's what they do. But when you, the citizen, defend yourself, you knew better.
But so you're blaming AOC for not bringing attention to this specifically? So as
blaming?
Like, or are you saying that she's hypocritical? Because she doesn't talk about the people being pushed in front of trains, but she's talking about this now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying hypocritical. No, I'm saying I have a question of why now? Why only when people are victimized and they defend themselves?
I hate this argument from Tim Pool. I hate this argument from Tim Pool. Like, look, we only have so much time in the day. We only have so much energy. I don't have to call out every single injustice, right? I should, perhaps. I don't have to, right? To say that this specific injustice is something that, oh man, I really want to focus on this. I don't see that, like, what is this? Oh, you didn't talk about this injustice here? You can't talk about this injustice there. I reject that wholesale. I think no. I think people can pick and choose, right?
Okay, I agree with that. I think the main thing, though, is when we're talking about people being pushed in front of subways, we are talking about discrete acts of premeditated murder where somebody sneaks up behind someone and tries to push them onto a subway. We aren't talking about a situation where it's a social engagement where people are de-escalating, like a fairly recurrent incident on public transit with everybody watching and making decisions in real time about how to respond to it. These are radically different types of things. Like, there's nothing to condemn. If somebody's been caught for pushing somebody onto a subway rail, they've committed attempted murder. That's it. that's as nuanced as the conversation needs to get. We don't even need to talk about like people's perception of the situation because only one person's perception was engaged at the time, and that's the person trying to push somebody else onto the subway track.
Mm-hmm.
Upset about what happened on the subway.
Saying victimized. We're talking about a poor homeless person who may have been having an episode and died in what like ended up being the struggle. So why are the people who were subduing him victims? What makes them victims of this?
He assaulted them.
So you have that on camera that he assaulted them first.
According to all the news reports and the police and the witness statements.
Wrong.
Can we see the footage? I want to see. I haven't seen that yet.
So that's a lie by Tim Pool, because that's not according to all the reports or the witness testimony.
I think we can show the choke out.
Okay, so according to the news reports, the witnesses, and the police, he went and threatened violence against people, which is assault. And
right, but you're saying he specifically threatened violence against the people who subdued him. Do we have evidence of that? It's one thing for him to be in a train being like, I'm upset.
You're not winning an argument here.
I'm not trying to win an argument.
You're being awfully pedantic.
Awfully pedantic?
Yes.
Why would you use pedantic in this form? As in, like, I'm trying to get to the root of this problem.
No, it's absurd to imply that if a guy walks up to a woman and says he's going to harm her, that another man can't protect her.
Right, and so this is why I'm asking, did he say to the people who subdued him, I'm going to harm you?
Yes,
I'm going to hurt you.
That's immaterial to a self-defense claim in proportionality.
Okay.
If this guy was threatening people, right? And then someone said, I'm going to stop you before you hurt someone, that is legal self-defense acting in the defense of others. That makes those people who are stopping the guy threatening people the victims of a violent individual who's trying to cause harm. See, I just find it fascinating that there's an effort to defend the aggressor in this circumstance. Right?
Oh, so you're suggesting that the guys, even if the guys that were choking out weren't the ones being threatened, that they're still considered a victim because they stepped in to defend other people?
Well, I'm saying outright that if you're on a train and there's a guy, you're on a train, you can't get off that train. You are trapped.
Yeah,
right?
I used to live in this area, by the way. I used to live in Flatbush. I used to take these trains every single day. I have seen this. I've seen this and worse. I've seen people in the middle of episodes where I was like, this person could potentially either harm themselves or harm me. It never crossed my mind that I need to choke them out to the point of potential death in order to protect everyone else on the train. That never even entered my mind. So that's why I'm asking you, do you have specific footage of him threatening the very people who subdued and ended up killing him?
But why does that matter?
I don't think there is footage.
But like, what is it?
All right, well then that's all I want to know.
But what does that have to do with what I said? That's why I understand your thought.
Because I would think that the proportionality being that you ended up killing them, even if that was not your intent, I understand that you don't think he intended to do that, fine. But even if that was it, were they like threats to him in the immediate present? Were they on the verge of committing an act of violence towards him that required proportional violence that ended up in death?
But it's not a requirement someone threatens you for you to act in defense of others. Right? So your question is kind of in an unnecessary direction. And I'll elaborate. If you're on a train and you're trapped in a box and someone is threatening violence, then yeah, you're a victim. Because
so I've been a victim multiple times then. I was in these subways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the craziest thing to me.
I don't feel like a victim. I've never been hurt. I never was hurt by people who were going through those kind of episodes.
Other people have been.
I'm not saying they haven't. I'm not saying this
25 people were pushed in front of trains.
Okay, so these 25 people were pushed in front of trains. How is that directly related? Were these people also going through episodes? Were they also people who were homeless? Did they have mental illness?
I would say anybody shoving someone in front of a train at random.
Doesn't matter.
You okay?
Yes, I don't think it's as binary as that. I think the Marine's victimhood comes into question or becomes a bit more blurred once the chokehold sort of exceeds the sort of 10 seconds or so. And clearly, Neely is not responding and it sort of continues. And I think those like 5 minutes, say, 5 minutes is a long time, especially in a situation like that. I think there is time for the heart rate to settle a bit. There is time for a bit of reflection. Of course, I am just saying this sort of in the aftermath and as an observer, but I do think that it was negligent and it was reckless from that point onward. I'd say initially, in the first 10 seconds or so, I can see the Marine being a victim, the Marine and the other two guys being sort of victims in that situation and using self-defense. But beyond that, it becomes very ill for me.
So someone in my chat asks, how is everyone suddenly an expert on restraint holds? Fair, but there is an assumption, right? And the reason this gets brought up is because there's an assumption that the Marine, the ex-Marine, would at least have some knowledge of this. Now, as someone who is ex-Air Force, if you called me to put into my basic training, like right now, yeah, you're not going to get the same results you would have gotten had I been an active member of the service, right? It would be significantly different, let me tell you, right? But there is at least some expectation of knowledge that I think we could bring into this on the part of the person who is carrying out the chokehold. Like, that there would be reasonable expectation that they would know that it was potentially lethal and that they shouldn't be choking someone for minutes, right?
Altvac says for $5, the people who push people in front of the trains weren't held and released by the police. That's what people are protesting.
Oh, are they protesting?
Oh, I see. I see. No. I think I see what they're saying. So they're referring to after the fact that the individual in question did have an extensive criminal record, which the person who was murdered did. But I don't think that really bears in this question. The people who were on the subway who were restraining him, if we're going to use that language, didn't know about his criminal history. They had the events before them, and that's it. People are protesting the response to that. They aren't protesting the fact that people aren't protesting because somebody was allowed to get killed who was a criminal. I think you've got that a little bit backwards there. If I'm reading you correctly, that's how it reads, anyways.
From what I understand, that they're saying the reason that the protests are happening is because they haven't arrested the Marine in this situation, and they're wanting, at least a cohort is wanting this man to be arrested for what he did, and he hasn't been arrested.
Oh, because he was let go. I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which again comes into play. Like, should he be held? Right? I don't know. But anyway.
So it does look like somebody's sending me some resources here in my server. It does look like there is precedent for police being disciplined for engaging in chokeholds.
Well, it's illegal in New York for the police officers to use that as a restraining method.
Yeah. Okay.
But for police officers specifically, I don't think this applies to the general public.
Yeah.
Is like going through an episode, you know what I mean? The correlation is that crime and murder on the subway has been increasing, or has at least been apparent in the press, but I don't see you caring about it at all until it's the aggressor who gets killed.
No one, I think, on the left is going to defend this stat that you're pulling.
Then why put a guy in prison?
Okay, so I see, just very quickly to someone elaborate on the super chat. No, the people who pushed people in front of the subway weren't found, questioned, and released. The Marine was brought in and then released without problem, even though he basically just engaged in murder on the subway, and we have verbal accounts that this person was being verbally aggressive to justify it.
Listen, for finally saying stop killing people.
This is like, Tim, if I approached you today and I was like, hey, do you know what goes on in Rikers Island? Have any of you done a show on what happens at Rikers Island? How they hold people in Rikers Island? Do you know what?
Not Rikers Island specifically, but we talk about prison reform all the time.
Okay, do you know about bail reform and the fact that people die in Rikers Island waiting to have their day in court because they can't afford it?
And we talked about it.
And you've done entire shows on that. And we talked about how people literally die in prison while they're waiting for that shit?
We talked about terrible. Okay, so we actually talked about one guy who got wrongly arrested, lost his job, was kicked out of his apartment, went to Rikers for 3 months, only to be released and then told, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. The city owes him nothing because they consider the prosecution not to be malicious. But this is the problem, man. Like, We talk about stuff like this all the time.
But the example you just gave me was not me talking about the systemic problem of people who are poor being in Rikers Island before they get to trial. They die before they're not released. You just gave me a story of someone who was released prior to that.
I'm giving you an example of a specific show we've actually talked about someone wrongly held and had their life destroyed.
Okay.
Now, of course, we can go on further and say, yes, people have died. Yes, the system is corrupt. And my point is this. When we talk about stuff like this, like, wow, in October, we talked about 25 people being pushed in front of train cars. You guys just shit all over us and ignore these problems. Then finally, when three guys...
ignoring this. I told you, no one's on the other side of this. No one is pro-push people onto train.
Where's your protest? Where's your protest?
Where's my protest?
Yeah, where's your protest?
Where's your Rikers protest?
We had it on the show, but you don't watch the show.
You did an actual protest. You guys stood up and then walked to the streets, or what?
We don't go on the streets ever.
But
Right?
I'm not blaming you for not talking about it, Tim, because this is the problem of, like, you are judging someone based on absence, based on your absence of caring about something. Why haven't you talked about this, Lance? The fact that you haven't talked about this means that you don't care about that. That's not true, though.
That's not what I said.
That's the implication of what you're saying right now.
My implication is, instead of helping us deal with this when we talk about it, you make up garbage about us and then post nonsense on the internet.
When have I brought up garbage about people pushing people to trains? This is the most random example.
I'm not talking about you saying. I'm saying
Lance,
you don't talk about it.
Let's
right?
talk about some of the garbage, right, that you've said about other people. Him ain't exactly wrong.
Bad decision.
The saying Lance sometimes talks a lot of shit that he probably shouldn't about others online. But I don't know if we can super condemn him for that, right? I think that's just a general thing.
I don't want to show the footage on screen, but apparently the audio is revealing. Are we comfortable with that? It doesn't depict anything
of the attack.
The Neely stranglehold.
The
yes,
Neely?
The footage we have. I want to have, like, the consent of everybody on board before.
Yeah, I'm unsure how we could play the audio without seeing the visual. Just a technical thing.
What would happen is I would just play the audio on my end, and I would keep the
could we hear it
down. Well, I'd be on the same screen.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, go ahead. I'm fine with it.
Kidology.
Yeah, yes, I'm fine with it. Yes.
Jordan, let me find it quickly. Jordan Neely footage.
Because I have seen the 2 minute. To be clear, I haven't seen the 2 minute thing. I'm not sure if this is the one you're going to show us, but I've seen it.
I think it is. Just hang on. So let's pop it up here.
Oh, this looks like a report, not the actual footage.
But I think it might show.
I think it contains some of the footage, but it doesn't.
George Floyd, thank you for that.
Yeah, if you're gonna do this, let's get the actual footage and not the news report of the footage.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let me try and find it quickly. Someone in stream, if you can post that in stream notes, that would save me some time. Or someone in chat, rather. Let's see, Jordan Neely footage.
In the meantime, chat, are you guys enjoying this content? Give me money. Money. Capitalism, yay. Okay. My shilling is done.
How are you doing, Kidology? I think this is actually the first time we've spoken.
Yes, it is actually, directly. Yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. Yes. I will have to go on the hour.
In like 40 minutes?
It's like, yes.
Oh, but you can't. We have 2 more hours of Tim Pool notes.
We're not going to get through this.
No, we're not.
Well, before we do it, though, like, since you only have a limited amount of time, was there anything you specifically wanted to talk about with us? Or Sunday, or me, or both of us, that you'd like to bring up?
No, not particularly. I wasn't sure what exactly was going to happen, so I'm
this is what's going to happen. Hopefully it isn't too crazy. It's not very organized like my panels usually are. It's just something I do that's a little more relaxed. I don't have to prep for it, and I could just say, "Hey, come on, let's have fun."
Okay,
yeah,
this is news footage.
Okay, sweet.
But it does show.
Yeah, it does show the actual thing.
So we'll just watch for however many seconds this runs. So
we'll
get the idea.
Not watch, please, but listen. Yes.
Well, I don't think there's audio, and I don't think anything happens in the footage. It just literally shows him in the chokehold, as you can see here. We've seen it all. So
yeah,
that's it. There's not really anything more than that, it seems. Let me check the Discord again. Maybe somebody sent me it. Here we go. It's on Twitter, apparently. All right, let me make
Thank you for the tip, Chipring Girl. $2. Appreciate it.
So apparently there's audio that's relevant.
I'm not hearing much.
I'm not hearing much either. Someone says there's dialogue. Look, I think we get the idea. So this guy's been docile for an extensive period of time, and he's just being gripped really hard. Like that's
Sure. I don't think anyone here is okay with
that's murder at this point. Pretty clear cut.
Negligence, at least.
No,
Manslaughter,
that's murder. At that point, that's intent. The guy is unconscious. He's not moving. You're choking him out. That's how you kill a person the most efficient way. We were talking about it not just and any child would be able to recognize that, but we're talking about someone who's like a trained soldier.
I'm just not comfortable calling it murder, right? If you were in a situation where you believe someone was about to be threatened and you're trying to restrain them, and yes,
Can I be honest, Whick? I think
negligence.
you got to get comfortable with calling that murder because that's murder.
I guess the courts will decide, and we'll find out. But I do not think it was.
All right.
I'm not criticizing you for not talking about it. I'm saying finally, when there are people who are like, we've had 25 people pushed in front of trains, we've had 2 of them killed, I'm not going to let this person hurt somebody, it's y'all saying that person should go to prison. It's like, how is that solving the problem? You guys
hang on. At 2 minutes in the original, someone says, stop, you'll kill him. Okay, let's jump to 2 minutes. Let's see what happens. 2 minutes. So here we go. 20 seconds. We cool with that? I couldn't make that out.
So what I heard was, hey, you need to let him off because he's going to die. My wife's ex-military. Something like that. Something around that. And yeah, he should have. But again, murder versus
How many minutes
negligence.
has to pass, Whick? How many minutes has to pass before it's like, hey, you know what? I think this guy kind of means to do it.
If it was a whole fucking 15 minutes, yes. If it was 2, no. If it was 3, no. If it was 5, no. But if it was a whole fucking 15 minutes where he's wrenching on it,
the man
right?
was limp. He was limp. He wasn't even moving.
I don't know what to tell you, right? Like if you have someone in a chokehold, right?
Yeah.
And you don't think that you're restricting their airway, but you are restricting their airway, is that murder or is that manslaughter?
Whick, why is it called a chokehold?
You understand you can have someone with their arm around the neck and not apply pressure, and the person can still breathe, still operate, still talk.
I don't think he intended to give Jordan Neely a hug.
Do you think so? You are saying that based on this evidence, you think that he intentionally killed this man?
Yes.
Okay, I just don't. I think that's a wild leap.
I think he put his arm around a man, and at the point where he became limp and unresponsive and was not even resisting, at the point where you still have his throat constricted in your arm tightly, which we clearly see he does, there's only one conclusion to that.
No, again, this is results-based thinking. You're post-hocking this. I think that in the moment, right, and I think his lawyers will successfully argue this if this goes to court, and I think it should go to court because I do think he was guilty of manslaughter here. But I do think that if you have your arm around someone's neck, right, that doesn't mean you're choking them necessarily. Obviously, he was, but did he know that? Was he aware of that? I don't know.
Kidology, what do you think?
Sorry, I was just replying to my chat.
No worries. Do you think it was murder? I'm going to throw you the uncomfortable question.
At this point in time, I think it was reckless homicide, but I could change my mind. I think more information needs to come out. I do think that...
She's smart, Whick. You should learn from her.
Reckless homicide is as I understand, manslaughter, right? Like, reckless homicide is kind of the same thing, right? That close. I'm not sure British law.
Words carefully.
I don't know British law, so.
All right, let's press on. We have 30 more minutes of Kidology being with us, so let's make the most of it.
Making it worse. Your protests, your support for the criminals make this worse.
So our solution to this, if you're asking, when you're saying you mean the left, right? Our solution to a lot of this is that
you're speaking in support of the criminal, so I'm saying you.
Okay, so I am saying that the solution to a lot of this would be investing very heavily in things like healthcare, like getting and making sure that people have access to it, and not cutting the restrictions, like allowing people to have access to healthcare, not as a requirement based on how much money they have, based on their income, but allowing them to get the care they need. That would have gone a long way to preventing a problem like this and future problems that are going to happen. I have no idea what's going on with the 25 people who've been pushed in front of trains. If it happens to be because people have mental illness, this is a tangible solution that we could work towards. This is something that are you against that idea about investing heavily into mental health care, public health care? Well, then there you go. That's a much better line.
So here's
right?
my issue. My issue is when this story came out in October, we talked about it. And we said, why is this happening? What are the solutions? What are the problems? When this story comes out now, you, completely ignorant of what's been going on in New York, side with the criminal. And so people like me are flabbergasted that we've been focused on the issue of crime, the issue of mental health, the entire time, going back several years. And this is why I left in New York, because 2 cops got murdered outside of my apartment. And then what do we hear? Protesters in the street defending the criminals.
You keep saying criminal. I have a problem with criminalizing people who are homeless or people who are poor or people who are mentally ill. And then suddenly,
I'm not saying he's a criminal for being poor. I'm saying he's a criminal because he threatened people with harm. Like incitement to violence is a crime, just like AOC says, right?
I really want to see the start of this video footage. I want to see the moment where he was threatening the very people who tried to take him down.
Look, either you accept that the witnesses, the media, and the police say this is what happened, or we can agree no one has any idea, so there's no point in even talking about it.
I think the interesting.
So I think like the problem with this whole conversation, and it's actually kind of fine that we're going to be concluding in like 20 or so minutes, I guess 30 minutes, is that Lance is completely unprepared and Tim Pool is lying about the material. So it's like, I think Lance's strategy in the argument is really bad, but Tim Pool is actually just patently misrepresenting the evidence of the case.
$5 from Trip says, anyone thinking this can't be murder or just as silly as anyone thinking this is without a doubt murder? I feel like this is obvious. Am I tripping? And again, as I said, if he was sit there wrenching on his neck for the full 15 minutes, yeah, obviously, right? But
what if he was
with his arm around him and he thought he wasn't choking him, but it ended up he was? Not murder.
What if he was lying on the ground exactly as he is when he's being held there in the footage we just saw, completely limp, and just for good measure, just to make sure he couldn't hurt anybody, just give him a little squeeze, and that killed him?
No, that if you're down,
would
you're
that
down,
be murder?
right? If you're down, you're down. If he was wrenching on his neck after he was down, then yes, that gets closer to murder. Right?
But we saw him doing that.
No,
That's
we didn't.
in the footage. Yeah, we did.
Play it again.
His arm was like, you want to play it again? Okay.
Play it again. His arm was around his neck, right?
Around it? Yeah, look at this. Goodbye monetization.
Do you see him wrenching? I'm waiting for the wrench.
Look how tight he's holding him.
I can't tell how tight that is. Can you tell?
I can tell it.
All I see
his
is
arm
his
is
arm,
tense.
like this. His arm looks like this. His arm looks like this, and I promise you, I'm not tight about anything right now.
I think what's also bizarre is that...
Oh, here we go. We got a better angle.
Oh yeah, because he's struggling, so he tries to keep him down. Right? This guy's obviously struggling.
Whick, that is tight.
Yeah, because he's struggling. He's not out. Still fighting.
That's more like twitching than struggling. I don't see his like any deliberate moves. Like he's not kicking very much. I think
that also when you have 3 people around, right?
Yeah.
If you're afraid that this individual is armed or has a weapon on him, this is the perfect opportunity to check him if he has weapons or anything on him and see if he's actually a threat. Because I think at this point, there's 2 of them holding him down. And then there's one who's also looking at his face. So surely he's observing whether this man is like alive or not. And so I think at this point, it is kind of looking at it now, it's actually inexcusable.
I don't think he needs I disagree. I don't think he needs a weapon to be a threat.
So Insomniar, who I actually am given by my interactions with them to believe actually knows what they're talking about here, says for $5, that particular choke renders someone unconscious in less than 9 seconds. Death occurs in 5 to 6 minutes.
Dude wasn't unconscious.
But he was unconscious.
He was unconsciously
No. Wait.
struggling like that?
No, you're confused. twitching and panicking because you're in a chokehold is not the same thing as being conscious and like taking swings. These actions look involuntary and they look like they're non-deliberate and thoughtless. He's not punching people. He's like just kind of shifting. Like he looks like
he can't because they're holding his arms down.
But they weren't holding his arms down. He had his neck held down. Look at what we're looking at here.
Dude,
at the
very beginning, he's grabbing his arms. He's holding his arms right
Whick.
there. Don't gaslight me.
Hang on. Calm down. So 18 seconds in, there's 2 more minutes to go. Look.
Got his arms.
He's still.
But then he struggles. Yeah, there he goes. He's trying.
Yeah, look at how weak his arm movements are. Like this is
weak because he has people holding his arms down.
Whick, when someone is being strangled, they involuntarily shift. He's not conscious.
You cannot tell that from this video.
Yes, you can, because he's not struggling harder despite the fact that the man's arm is around his neck.
You don't know how you do.
But we do because he died.
How hard this struggle is.
No, but we know how hard he was pulling because the man died. We knew it was at least hard enough to kill him. Right?
He did die from this eventually.
Yes.
But in this moment right here, you do not know, nor do I, nor does anyone know whether this man is conscious or not. We know he is struggling.
Whick, we actually don't know he's struggling. So what we know is that at the beginning of this clip, which runs 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, and a chokehold like this can actually kill someone if it's applied tightly enough to knock somebody out within seconds. Whick. This man is still at the first frame. He is not retaliating. He is out at this point, and this runs for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. He is not released at the end. 15 minutes, for all we know, is being generous. Like, maybe it was longer. We don't know. Like, there's no ambiguity here. Like, at the point where someone is like this, there's nowhere else to go except to kill him.
Yeah. Brittany Simon is in my chat, and Brittany, love
Tell
you
her
to
hi
see.
for me.
She says that Marine wanted some social credit for being a man, not for being a kind human. I'm increasingly starting to align myself with that.
I don't know what that. I'd have to dig into that. But again, right? If someone is struggling, whether consciously or not, and you believe them as a threat, right? That's a Sansol, thank you for the raid.
I think there's a difference I think there's a difference in context. I mean, if you are being choked to death and you can feel yourself being choked, surely you have just a right and just instinctively want to free yourself and not struggle against them. So based on that, I mean, I think that's whether he's unconscious or not.
Remember, we're looking at this from post hoc. We're post hocking this. This is out of the situation. Exactly, we're not there.
Well, not really though, Whick, because the footage we have is during the situation.
I understand.
He hasn't been.
And during the situation,
all we know from his motion in that footage is that he's not yet dead. That's all we know. And frankly,
all they know is this guy is struggling to escape.
But he should be able to struggle to escape. They have him on the ground choking him out.
Morally, he has every right to do so. But if you believe someone is a threat and going to hurt people, and you restrain them, and then they try to break out of it,
Whick,
are you going? They tried to break out of it. We got to let them go now, so we can hurt the people. That's cool.
Okay,
right?
Whick, you recently, Whick, you recently held a poll on Twitch about whether the mentally ill should be institutionalized. Okay, I would say this. If you are so delusional that you think a man who is limp and already in a chokehold on the ground needs to be held in that chokehold for minutes later, you are delusional enough to require institutionalization. You are a danger to the people around you. The person who is holding him down.
You have never watched someone claw someone else's eyes out with their bare hands, have you? Right? Like, to act as if he didn't have a weapon and just because there was more people there who was nothing he could do, there was no threat.
Sorry, Whick, look at me and tell me with a straight face, do you think that man was going to get up from the chokehold and claw
I don't know, and
eyes
you
out
don't
with his
know.
thumbs?
I don't know, and you don't know.
Let me tell you something, okay? I would bet a lot of money, more money than I have, that he wouldn't. and that he couldn't.
Of course, because you know the results of what happened afterwards. You know that obviously this guy was choked to death and died. But in this situation, in this moment now, they don't know that. They don't know what this guy's capable of or what this guy's going to do if he gets out.
Thank you for the $5, Insomnoir. Watch an MMA fight where this move is applied and how fast the person has to tap before they lose consciousness or before the referee stops the match. I'll take your word for it. Anyways.
Yeah, Brittany says, fear is the reason we make bad decisions. Don't give into fear, use reason. And I think, just based on seeing the clip, I do think that there is actually room for... There should have been room for reason, because there were 3 of them, one of whom was standing over, observing the situation in real time. And I think there was enough time in those 5 minutes, at least, to apply some reason in that situation, as opposed to acting on fear.
When he was out, they should have let him go. But if you're struggling, you have no reason to believe that person is out.
That's silly, the Whick. Like, now you basically made it so that if somebody strangles somebody else, and if they have involuntarily shifts of any kind and of any intensity, that therefore that is carte blanche justification to continue pressing down on the one part of their body that you know if you squeeze will kill them for an indefinite length of time, because that can repeat over and over and over again. Oh, he twitched. It doesn't work that way. That's crazy.
I am in a situation... Oh, go on, please.
So I was going to ask you, would you feel the same way if this... if Jonathan Neely, if he was instead just, say, an above average strong woman?
If they were, look, if a woman, say even a petite woman, even a very weak 5'0" petite woman had just threatened, and I believed it was a reasonable threat. I believed that they were capable and it was imminent to carry out, that they were going to kill someone, that they were going to hurt and kill someone, and I and 2 of my buddies tried to restrain her, I would keep her restrained, even if she struggled. So I wouldn't let her go as soon as she started struggling. Why would I do that? Because I know or I have reason to suspect, if I let them go, they are going to continue to carry out their threat. I am going to stop them from carrying out that threat. Why is that unreasonable? I'm not seeing the disconnect. Like, do we think that as soon as someone starts to struggle that we have to let them go?
No.
What is this?
Whick, look at this man.
I am looking. Watch what he does.
Here.
He's struggling.
But that's why I said sort of above average strength female, because looking at this man, he looks quite scrawny relative to the other men there. I'm just going based on like this very blurry footage. But from what I can see, he doesn't look as strong as them, right? Especially considering that there's 3 of them and they're sort of overpowering him, overbearing him.
Well, I think whether he's scrawny or not is kind of beside the point. Like, at this point, he's on the ground. He is subdued. I just, like, at this point, you may as well rationalize them just, like, putting bullets into him, because they clearly couldn't stop him from twitching once he was in a chokehold.
Again, restraining someone is not killing them. Shooting someone is
I agree.
Killing them.
That's my argument. Again, I don't think they're restraining him at this point.
You're doing this results-based thinking. You're like, well, this was the result, so obviously
no, not at all. Not at all.
You are absolutely right. This is what we're engaged. All this is
no. I'm using the results to judge how intensely they were holding him, because you're absolutely correct. I have nothing to go off of from this image except for like the curve of the fabric and how close the crook of his elbow is.
Yeah, I cannot tell how tight this thing was.
But I can, because he's dead.
But again,
so we know exactly how minimally tight it was. That is, it was at least tight enough to kill him.
Sure. But again, this guy was struggling, and we are having to say, did this guy intend to kill him, or was he just negligent?
What if he was just
not whether or not he's innocent? He's obviously not.
Well, hang on. Is it plausible that he's twitching right now? That the effort that caused him to die also caused involuntary muscle spasms. Is that going to justify continuing to hold him in the same chokehold at the same intensity that killed him?
Is it reasonable? Is it reasonable to think that the people who are restraining him do not know that it is involuntary twitching.
Is that a reasonable threshold for them
Yes.
for it to be ambiguous?
If you think
no,
that this
hang on,
person
hang on.
isn't
Wait,
out but
wait.
is struggling.
Okay, but Whick,
Right?
here's the order of causality. Okay, this person started saying, "I'm going to hurt everybody on this train," and then somebody sneaks up behind him and puts him on a chokehold, and then he holds him there, and then he continues to hold him there. He goes limp, and then he holds him there. His arms flail a bit. He holds him further. 2 minutes pass
arms
by.
are
Somebody
just
walks up to him.
flailing
Wait, I'm not done. I'm not even done yet. And he rolls intensely. He tries to get out of the chokehold. Somebody walks up to him 2 minutes later. Hey, my wife's in the military. I know what I'm talking about. You're actually going to kill him and potentially incur like a criminal charge. You need to let go of him. And he continues to hold him, and then the man dies. Where's the ambiguity here? He's been warned even.
Again, you from the jump almost, you made it something that didn't actually happen.
No,
right?
that's been
Oh
an
my
accurate
God,
representation
this is
of the
so
news
frustrating.
report.
We're watching it right now. This guy put a man in a chokehold because he felt there was a threat, right? A reasonable threat. And I think most of us agree that some restraint might have been, at least we can entertain the hypothetical that in some world, this might have been an actual threat that needed to be restrained. Fair, okay? This guy takes him, puts him in a chokehold, the dude struggles. That's fair too. The guy's struggling, that's reasonable. Nothing wrong with it there, okay? Nothing wrong with either party in this case. The person's being choked, struggles. The person that's restraining him keeps him restrained, right? Again, these involuntary twitches, you have 3 dudes on this guy, and it's looking like at certain points, he's gonna get out, or he might get out.
If I had 3 dudes on me, and one of them had their arm around my neck, I would be struggling, regardless. Because
Again,
that's panic.
Yes, of course.
So Whick, hang on. So if you were like yelling at your partner or something, and I misheard you, and I thought you said, "I'm gonna knife you if you say that again," and then I put my arm around you, would I be entitled? Would I be like?
Would you let me go? If you thought I said that, would you let me go as soon as I started struggling?
At the point where
Would you let me go? If a man, let's do this. If there was a man and he was raping someone,
my arm would have been
violently raping someone, and you started choking him to stop him,
my arm
and then
would have
he
been
started
off your neck.
struggling,
Whick,
would you let
Whick.
him go?
Whick,
Yes or no?
Here's but here's the crucial point. Look at the very beginning of this video. Watch. Count the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20. It takes 24 seconds before he even starts heaving. This is not somebody who is struggling to get released. This is somebody who is being strangled.
I have been okay. I don't understand like why you're not getting this and what the disconnect here. Just because he wasn't struggling for 20 seconds and then he started struggling doesn't mean that they knew. What you were saying is that they knew that this man knew he was out and unconscious.
Whick, that means for at least 20 seconds, he was being held around the neck without struggling while being on the ground with his eyes closed, his arms limp. We are not watching somebody struggling at this point. We are watching somebody being held far beyond the realm of any reasonable restraint action, and then spasming as he's being choked to death.
You, again, assuming that you or anyone there can tell that he is spasming and not simply trying to escape so he can hurt someone is just, like, again, this is armchair Monday morning quarterbacking. Like, you cannot tell. I cannot tell. The people there cannot tell. The only reason that you are inferring this is because you know the result of what happens in the future. These people are not living in the future in this moment. They're living in the moment. They do not know whether the man is struggling to get out because he is unconscious and is spasming or...
Whick, no reasonable person in their right mind would hold somebody around their neck for 20 seconds when they're not responding. That's insane. That's insane.
Unless
there is no unless. Those are the conditions. We witnessed this firsthand right here.
At what point would you let someone who has threatened to kill you go?
At the point where they're limp on the ground, unresponsive.
Okay.
At the very
you
least,
let them
let
go.
go of their
They
neck.
get up and they stab you in the chest.
No. But Whick, there are other options available to them.
Now you're fucking dead.
What?
Okay, you let them go. You stop choking them.
Wick,
they struggle,
as you
they
can
escape,
see,
they stab you in
as
the
you
chest.
can see, Wick,
Now
as
you're
you can
dead.
see,
Now you're
no,
fucked.
as you can see, there are men with their hands on his arms. His arms are restrained. At that point, this is what you do: you let go of his neck. You maybe hold his shoulders down. That's perfectly reasonable. And you look for weapons, and then you call the cops. You don't
They
just
called the
continue
cops
lying back.
way before this, or at least he said to call 911.
Well, then there you go.
Initially.
Then you look for weapons, and you pin his limbs down, or you pin his shoulders down. You don't continue to constrict his
Fondue,
airway.
thank you for the $2. Expert Marine, expert MMA fighter, expert doctor. Thank you, Trib, for the other $2. Yes, suboptimal. Why is this still an argument? Obviously, this wasn't the best move going forward. But what we're arguing and what we're
It's
trying
the
to say,
understatement of the
was there
21st
intent, and can you tell this intent from this video? I am saying you cannot tell this intent from this video. You cannot tell. This is not sufficient
What would it
evidence,
take? Well,
right,
what
to
would you
say
need
that
as
this man
evidence, then?
intended to kill this other man.
Wick, at the point where you're holding somebody who's already limp for 20 plus seconds, and you continue to do so for an additional 2 minutes, even with somebody else telling you, hey, I'm a professional, you're going to kill this guy. What do you need at that point? He may as well have just shot him in the chest at this juncture.
Look, just because some rando says something, right? Again, I would have let him go long before this. I wouldn't have chose a chokehold in the first place. But I'm not in this scene. I am not there, right? Again, this guy had been struggling for a full minute, looks like, right before this. Now, the question is, did he know he was unconscious? If he did know he was unconscious, then yes, it is intent. If he did not know...
His responsibility at that juncture is to know, Wick.
Jesus Christ, there's a bunch of people who've, like, look... A lot of people who've never been outside
unless you
touching grass.
trust me, Wick.
Look,
Wick. Don't let the cardigan fool you. I've been outside.
I'm talking to my chat. To be clear, okay. There's a lot of people in my chat that are just like, "Oh, Wick's never been outside," and was like, I was. Okay. I'm getting triggered.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
please.
Brittany Salmon says something interesting again. She said,
"Does she want to join us?"
Yeah, she can join us if she likes.
Oh yes, if you'd like to join, Brittany.
In fact, let's you know, we're running the clock. Let's cut this video stream. If everyone's fine with that, I think we basically exhausted it.
Tim Pool at this point. Tim Pool and Lance, I don't care about them anymore because now I'm mad at you. And we're gonna talk about this.
Brittany said the Marine did not intend to kill him, but he obviously didn't care if he did. At least, again, from the people I know, they all know it's a death sentence to keep that hold. So what's the mystery?
Well, that's the argument on whether or not there was intent, right? If you did not intend to kill someone, then it's manslaughter, as I understand it, right? Or a negligent homicide, something like that. If you don't intend to kill,
I think it would be an act of exceptional charity that only a legal court could apply to say that this man did not intend to kill the person at the 2-minute mark of this footage. Frankly, I would have said so at the 20-second mark. Because this man was docile and unresponsive at the beginning of the clip.
But he wasn't docile and unresponsive throughout the video. He was struggling.
No, because
now, your
at the
argument
point where
is that it was spasmatic.
Yes, yeah, because
struggling.
deprived. Look, we had to hang the person. He was struggling in the rope. You see how this doesn't make any sense?
This isn't a lynching. What are you talking about?
No.
Look,
you're misunderstanding me. I'm not talking about a lynching.
Restraining someone.
No, you're misunderstanding me. When your brain has oxygen cut off from it, the thing that governs your behavior and activity, your body acts in ways that are not reasonable. You flail, you twitch. The man's being killed. We know this because he died.
We know this because he died. That's key. You know this because he died.
Yes, we know exactly how much pressure he was applying.
They did not know this.
But they did.
Because he
was not responsive. They knew he was applying enough pressure to be unresponsive.
Again, if you're flailing around, you ain't unresponsive.
He wasn't flailing around for at least 20 seconds.
But then he started responding. Yes or no?
He didn't start responding. No, they held him down. He stopped responding.
20 seconds, he stopped responding.
Twitching.
Then after the 20-second mark, he started responding. Whether or not it was unconscious flailing, or whether or not it was purposeful, intentional flailing.
So hang on,
I don't know.
Hang on.
You don't know.
Hang on.
They didn't know.
Wait. Is the rule then that it's okay to keep holding his neck if he twitches every 20 seconds?
You keep him restrained till he stops struggling to get out. Yes.
Hold his arms down. Hold his legs down. You don't squeeze his throat. That kills him.
Again, I'm not saying that the chokehold, for as long as it did, was okay, right? Obviously, it wasn't okay. But the question is, was it intentional?
Yes,
and I would say
it
that
was objectively
no,
intentional.
we cannot tell from this amount of evidence.
I don't believe he was that stupid that he couldn't tell that that would kill him. That's silly. I think he thought he had the right to kill him given the circumstances. I think he thought that so long as this person was of a certain type of human being, had engaged in a certain type of unpalatable verbal action in a particular setting, that therefore he would just be hailed as a hero regardless of what he did to him. I think this person actually thought he had carte blanche to do what he wanted because he interpreted this person as the aggressor. He was mistaken, and he was a psychopath for taking that as an excuse.
Again, I think this man, right? This is my thought, right? This is what I can tell from the information I have available to me. That this man and others, this guy's a reasonable threat. We should stop him. He engaged in something he probably shouldn't, right? He probably should have used another way to restrain him, but he chose to use a chokehold to restrain him. The guy was struggling, and he thought...
But he didn't stop. This is also somebody who, unlike a stranger on a bus, like anybody else, would not be trained. This is somebody who would have been trained to know exactly how long to perform a chokehold and when to stop, because they are trained for this in the Marines, and they're trained for this in the police as well, I believe, where it's not illegal. The fact that this person held him in excess of the absolute maximum length of time by something like 3 times in the footage that we saw alone, when clearly it happened for longer because he was unresponsive at the beginning of the clip. Like, Whick, there's just no defending this. He'd put him to sleep for at least 20 seconds. At least, probably for longer.
No, he didn't know he was asleep. He knew he was unresponsive. This is a difference here.
What conclusion would you draw from the fact he's unresponsive after
if someone stops moving, the only conclusion I know is that they've stopped moving. I don't know if it's because they're unconscious. I don't know if it's because they're asleep. I don't know any of these things.
Wouldn't it behoove you under those circumstances to take some effort to check? For example, letting go of his throat and then holding onto his shoulders.
That would have been the optimal way to do it. The optimal way to do it would be to check. But I'm not going to hold someone to making sure that they do every single step exactly correct or they are a murderer. I think that's going to be horrific when it comes to domestic violence self-defense cases. It's going to be horrific when it comes to defense against rape and other things.
Hot take.
If we have these standards for these incidences that they have to do every single thing in correct order at the correct time, it's going to be horrific, right?
Yeah, it will be. Because we're talking about people murdering people. And moreover, this is somebody who is actually trained how to do it. And how not to do it.
Yeah.
Kidology, is Brittany going to join us at all? Or?
Yeah, sorry, Brittany. Brittany said we must enjoy ourselves. She has dinner with her parents soon, so she won't join. But she says thank you. And yes, she's watching intently. So yes.
Okay. Well, we got 5 minutes left. Kidology, what's your favorite anime?
I mean, film or series? I'd say film.
Dealer's
Wicked
choice.
City.
Which one?
Wicked City.
I haven't seen Wicked City.
You haven't? Oh, you must. No. You must.
Wicked City.
It's the first anime I watched, and I watch it about once a month.
Oh, that looks interesting.
Brilliant. Yes, highly recommend.
That's a movie, right?
Yes.
How about a series?
I don't watch a lot of anime series, at least not like sort of in the traditional sense. There was one that I watched called 𝕶𝖎. If you know that, it's on Netflix. Quite good.
Fondue for $2 says to watch Psychopaths. I don't know.
Psychopaths. Okay.
That's why the guy who did Perfect Blue. I've been told that's really good. I haven't seen that one yet either, but it's on the list. For myself,
very good.
You saw
Yes.
Perfect Blue? Good. Yeah, okay. So person of taste, clearly. For myself, To Your Eternity has a bit of a rough start, but season 2 was superb.
To Your Eternity or
take-
To Your
To Your Eternity is very good.
To Your
Taking
Eternity. Okay.
anime out of this and just speaking from a series perspective, if I have to wait for season 2 for something to get good, I'm not going to watch that show. I'm just going to be real with you. If I were to go through 10 or 12 episodes of not good before it gets
I'm going to
good,
refute you.
I'm not
I'm
going
going to refute you. I'm going to refute you with exactly 3 words, okay? Definitively, and you will just turn into a mushroom and die. The Next Generation.
Star Trek: The Next Generation, to be clear. Okay, fair. But
Awful first season.
the only
Superb
reason,
television.
like, I didn't watch the first season. I started at the good part. Why would I watch the bad part?
Season 1 of To Your Eternity is very good. It gets a little bit rough near the end, and then it's consistently good for the second season.
So I would just start there. Start at the good part.
No, you need to build up. Patience is a virtue. With people
No,
and with
patience
spirits.
is a test, and I'm not gonna pass that one. I'm old. Okay, maybe for you.
I mean, I don't think
folks.
you're that impatient. You would have put the person in a chokehold for a solid 2 minutes if he twitched a little bit.
Yo,
You have
I
the
wouldn't
patience of a
look.
saint.
What I would have done is I would have streamed it. I wouldn't have been fighting it. I would have streamed it, and I would have accepted donos. It'd be like a subathon, but for strangling.
Okay,
right?
okay. Stop while your head. Stop while your head. That's less.
That's a
more
joke,
funny in your
to
head
be
than just in
clear.
real life. I know.
You weirdos.
All right. Shall we call it here?
I'm good with it. Yeah, Kidology.
Kidology,
thanks
it's
for
been an
coming.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please invite me anytime. I
Yes.
love this. This was fascinating
enjoyed
just
it.
to hear these 2 great minds in action. So thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate your words. Thank you. Hearing me and Sunday argue, I'm glad someone enjoyed it. So thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I'll see you soon. And Sunday, we're going to reschedule at some point.
Yes. Yes, we will.
Just let me know whenever. I'm perfectly open to anything. So yes,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Have a good night, kid.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
Okay, Sunday. How'd you do overall?
What's that? How'd I do overall?
Yeah.
I
You got
think
that
here-
hundo at the beginning, didn't you? Damn.
Here, let me see. It's actually kind of difficult for me to actually see the total here. Monetization. I think I'm at like about 150.
Yeah,
Where are you at?
You got me this time. I'm at 90.
Oof.
Gang, there's still time though. We still probably got another 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes to catch us up, gang. So if you've enjoyed my takes, whether you're on Twitch or on Twitter, feel free to give some subs, give some bits, throw some super chats into chat. I don't know what else to say, right? I think if you feel someone is an imminent threat and they struggle to get out, don't let them out. I think that's keep them restrained. Now, should
You know what
he
I
choke
think?
him out? No. But keep him restrained. Don't let them go just because they struggle. Don't do
You
that.
know what I think? I think I got more money than you, which means I need to sing us out.
But your song was so bad last time.
My song was beautiful
Your
last
song was so
time.
bad last time. I have a good song.
was
I have a good
beautiful.
song.
I've got a better song, and I made more money than you, so I win.
Fine. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what, though. You wanna join the chorus?
If I know it.
Do you know a British tar?
No.
Oh, god damn it. A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. His energetic fist should be ready to resist a dictatorial word. His nose should pant, and his lips should curl, his cheek should furl, and his bosom should heave. I've missed a line, so this makes no sense. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Bye. Okay. We're raiding out, gang. So I'll go away from you. Hold on. I'll send him away. Send him away to the void. To the void with that guy. Yeah. Murder the pores. No, do not murder the pores. Do not murder anyone, gang. Murder is bad. This guy is absolutely guilty. Well, not absolutely, but pretty sure he's guilty of manslaughter. He's guilty of negligent homicide. He's guilty. It's not like I don't want to see him punished, right? Or held responsible, if you will. If you commit manslaughter or reckless homicide, you should absolutely face consequences, and I think they should face consequences. But murder, it might end up being murder if more information comes out, right, than we have now. If there's more information that comes out than we have now, it very well still may be murder. But to act as if we know it's murder, it's just giving me vibes of all the lefties who fell on their swords about Rittenhouse, saying Rittenhouse was of course guilty of being a murderer, right? And it turned out that they were all fucking fools, right? When more evidence came out, more footage came out, and we saw, and as the things progressed, it was clear he wasn't guilty, right? And the courts decided that, and a lot of people ate crow, right? I'd rather not do that. I'd rather wait for evidence to come out and give charity to everyone who engages in these acts, right? My charity, to be clear, involves someone who charitably is probably guilty of negligent homicide. I don't know, though, right? I'm not an expert in any of these matters, but from what I observed, from the information we have, right, I think restraining him at the beginning was the right call. I also think that he absolutely restrained him in the wrong manner and for too long. We could tell that again, but I don't think he intended to do it. It might be that he did, but I don't think there's enough evidence to say that he did. That's all. I just think that a lot of people have never actually engaged in any physical altercations, have never actually been shelked, have never actually wrestled at all in their lives, who've never actually been in a fight or any kind of physical altercation whatsoever, are pontificating online about what that's like and what it's like to be in a fight and what it's like to feel their life threatened, who've never been shot at, who have never been mortared, who have never been physically struck. Look, keep on keyboard warrior and out. You just don't know what you're talking about, and it's very clear and evident that you don't know what you're talking about. You saw some stuff on MMA, and it went like this thing in an MMA match, and you're using that evidence to show how chokeholds work and things like that. That's not real life. That's not how these things work, right? When you were in a subway trying to defend others, and there's possibility of weapons and other things that you may not know, right? Like the adrenaline gets pumping. And yes, we absolutely need to give people leeway to defend themselves. That said, again, I do not think that this was acceptable. It was absolutely unacceptable, and their consequence should be consequences. Those consequences aren't murder. Anyone who's saying it's murder with full absolute certainty is diagnosably dumb, let's say. It's just silly. Who are we raiding out to, gang? Who are we going to? Who are we going to today? Yes, everything I just said. 𝕵𝖎𝖎. Everything I just said. Being shot at, having mortar shot at me, being physically struck. How do you think I lost these teeth? Like, having been choked out, having been beat up, having, wrestled with people. All these things. Yes, absolutely. Okay, who we raiding into? Who's streaming? There's Prime, Sad Kit Kat, I'm Really Important, Paint Baby, Not So Erudite, Spraticus, Blacktoid. Who are we going? Prime Guy? Okay, that's where we're going. Remember, tomorrow, we're going to be a little early. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be on Adam and Sitch with Dat Katie. We're going to talk talking about platforming. Then at 6 Eastern, we're going to have a show on my channel about public education. And that'll be fun. So, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!